Good evening. I call to order the Lake Havasu City regular council meeting on Tuesday, June 25th, 2019 at 6 p.m. We'll now have an invocation from Pastor Andrew Cave, Lamb of God Lutheran Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by the Elks Lodge 2399 and the Elkettes.
The Apostle Paul writes that rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad. Would you have no fear of the one who is in authority? Then do what is good, and you will receive his approval, for he is God's servant for your good. Let us pray. O God, you have established earthly authority to carry out your good and gracious will. Grant to these your servants the spirit of knowledge and wisdom and the holy fear of you, that, striving to do according to your will, they may govern according to your justice and righteousness. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Would you all join us in the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mayor Sheehy and council members, citizens all, for inviting us to speak today. I'm Debbie Hurd, exalted ruler of our local Elks Lodge, and this is Eva Fox. She's president of our auxiliary, the Elkettes. The Benevolent and Protective Order of Elks was established in 1868, organized by actors with the purpose of practicing four cardinal principles: charity, justice, brotherly love, and fidelity. The requirements for becoming a member of our benevolent order are twofold. One, be an American citizen, and two, believe in God. Come to our lodge on McCulloch Boulevard and fill out an application. Once initiated, you may enjoy the facilities including 3,700 fellow members, a bar open 7 days a week, a restaurant that serves food 6 days a week, and an RV park with 25 full hookup sites. This is what draws many folks to our lodge, but this is not the heart of the work that we do. The lodge provides a centralized location for the hive of activity that is the Elks Charitable Works. Because we do extensive charity work for our veterans, many believe that you must have a military background to join, but that is incorrect. The Benevolent and Protective Order of Elks are committed to supporting our veterans. We honor our vets on a daily basis. We have active representation in the Lake Havasu City Veterans Court and the Veterans Resource Team. Our lodge honors veterans every Friday by wearing our red shirts. We hold a Flag Day ceremony, host a veterans dinner, and participate in all city parades. At Christmas, our veterans in the VA hospital in Prescott receive gifts. The Elks mantra is, as long as there are veterans, we will be there to help. We support the Arizona Elks major projects that help fund the Steele Memorial Children's Hospital and a camp used every summer at no cost by Boy Scouts, youth groups, and church organizations. As an institution, we are committed to youth programs and drug awareness. We host the Elks Family Swim during Youth Week. Grant funds are utilized to provide free and reduced daycare, host Teen Break with the game trailer and drug awareness, and the Family Swim that occurs in conjunction with the Stickum event that provides medical services, and an additional swim in February to express our love of the entire community. Christmas is busy as we support multiple programs. Kids Turn to Shop, where children come shop for their family's Christmas gifts. Clothe a Child, which clothes 96 children every year. Finally, our Christmas Basket program, which provides food and gifts for families in need. Our lodge is a busy place with many activities to enjoy, but we couldn't do any of this without our auxiliary. Eva?
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Eva Fox. I'm the president of the Elkettes here in Lake Havasu City. We started 1 year after the Lake Havasu City Elks Charter in September 1969. Since our inception, we have been an indispensable part of the Elks Lodge. The Elkettes membership is composed of Elks spouses and Elks. We've had 42 Elkette presidents, some serving 2-year terms. We meet the second Tuesday of every month at 7 p.m. when the Elks are having their house committee meeting. Today we have 222 members. Our Elkette history includes the purchase of several lots that the Elks building is sitting on today, and many of the niceties inside. Holding many fundraisers along with outside catering, they continued to raise money needed to help the Elks Lodge to grow and flourish. Over the years, our standard events have generated funds for the Elks and many local charitable organizations. We hold a fashion show, a craft fair, a rummage sale, a very crazy auction, and a fabulous holiday dinner dance. They're all raising money with proceeds going to our Elks Lodge and local charities. In November 2018, we added a nightly pie sales that have generated over $9,000 to local charities. And a 52 club raffle that generated $7,500 that went to our lodge and nonprofits. Yay! We do all of this with our Elkette volunteers working many hours. This year, we also started giving our time to some local organizations, the Clothes Closet, Veterans Thrift Store, and Prestige Assisted Living Center. Thank you for letting us be involved with your meeting this evening. Remember, you get out of life what you put into it, and be kind to everybody.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you for being here and for all the great work that the Elks does in our community. We appreciate it. All right, the next item on our agenda is the call to the public. This is where citizens have the opportunity to address the city council. Oh, excuse me, I was getting ahead of myself. Who's here tonight? Let's do the roll call. Ms. Williams.
Thank you. Mayor Kalshihi.
Here.
David Lane.
Here.
Jenny Koch. Here. Gordon Grote.
Here.
Michelle Lind.
Here.
Donna McCoy.
Here.
Jim Dolan.
Present.
Thank you.
All right. Back to our regular scheduled program. Item 5 on the agenda is the call to the public. This is the opportunity where citizens have the opportunity to address the city council on any matter within the jurisdiction of the city. You have 3 minutes. You would just make your way to the podium. You don't have to sign up, but we did have some folks sign up. There will be a light indicator. Green will be go, yellow will mean that you have 1 minute left, and red means that the time is up for your 3 minutes. If you are here for a particular public hearing this evening, we do encourage you to wait till that time of the meeting so we can have a two-way conversation. Otherwise, right now, we would just be listening to your comments that you may have. So with that being said, again, you don't have to sign up, but we did have a couple of folks sign up, so we'll start there first. We have Ms. Frankie Lyons. The public hearing? Okay, thank you. Ms. Lisa Kruger from the Chamber of Commerce.
Good evening, Mayor Sheehy and council members. I have some new chamber members to introduce to you in the audience tonight. If you are here, if you want to, maybe with this crowd, just stand up, or Devin, move forward so we can see you. So I wanted to, just as a reminder, the reason that the chamber is bringing new members to council meetings this year is just to kind of reaffirm the fact that the business community is a big part of what makes our community rock and roll, so to speak. So we're just here hoping to let everybody know about what's going on. So I have 2 members here. I'm gonna start with them. We have Devin Bell here from Compassus Hospice. Devin's in the back. And we have Judy Selberg here from Lake Havasu Ballet. So thank you both for being here. Our other new members are Number 1 Arizona Electric, Jenny's House Cleaning, Keller Williams Arizona Living Realty, Sorme Chakra, Ken's Pizza and Pasta, Liberty Mutual Insurance, Sin City Whiskey, Stutter Tattoo, Remax by the Lake, the G-Force, Ohala, Red Star Off-Road Tours, Thompson Family Plumbing, and Allstate Insurance, Trini Tapia. So some of them couldn't make it tonight, but it's just, again, a pleasure to be here and keep you guys in the loop on what's rolling in the business world. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Thomas Pillard. Pickard, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Hi, my name is Tom Picker. Thank you for letting me speak to you today. We've met before briefly in Albertsons.
Yes.
I'm back about the same issue again.
Yes.
I live over on 2324 Rainbow Avenue North, right at the corner of Beverly Glen, where there's a blind corner there. The easiest, simple way to tell you is I fear for my life every time I back out of my driveway. It's basically a drag strip on that road with people going from 30 to 60, 80, 90 miles an hour on that street. I asked before, I don't know where else we can go. All I can tell you is experiences when I worked in California, worked for the state and county of Riverside. We need speed bumps. That's the only thing that's going to slow people down. Either myself or one of my neighbors, there's going to be another serious accident there. Eventually, it's just a matter of time. I'm just reaching out to you to actually hopefully be a little more proactive and not reactive before something happens. I don't know what else,
Sure.
We spoke briefly.
Yes.
Actually, I kind of corralled you in Albertsons, if I recall.
It's one way to get things done. No, thank you so much, Tom,
And
for
I
being
think
here.
I spoke with you before, Donna, too, I
Yeah.
think one time, a couple of years ago. So I've been here 8 years, and it seems to be getting worse and worse. Of course, we have more people coming in. It's getting worse. I almost got hit on the way over coming out here today to come out tonight, so. I'm
Yeah, we
just
want our
asking-
residents to be safe for sure. Mr. Knutson, our city manager, do you have a business card maybe you can give to Tom, and then we can connect up and we'll see what we can do to help you out.
I know you put the trailer out, and that worked. I know we spoke, and then they had the radar trailer out.
Yes.
It worked for 2 or 3 days while it was there, and then when it left, it started again. And then the other thing, it seems like that trailer gets put all the way down at the corner at the end of the street at the next stoplight. So I'm not quite sure how or what that helps either, just to
Sure.
kind of throw it out. Okay. Thank you
Yeah,
again.
thank you for being here. And if you want to see Mr. Knutson, he'll get you a
Okay.
card and we'll connect up. Thank you. We don't have anyone else that signed up for the call to the public, but again, you don't have to. So if anyone else would like to address the city council and the call to the public, please make your way to the podium and state your name for the record. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Item 6 is the consent agenda. Would any members of the council like to remove any of the consent agenda items for further discussion? No?
Mayor,
Yes.
motion?
Yes.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Koch and a second from Councilmember McCoy. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Moving on to item 7, correspondence, communications, petitions, announcements, and the city manager report. Item 7.1 is the fiscal year 2018-19 third quarter contracted service agency reports. Chief Doyle presented these for us for review. Do any council members have any questions? All right, we'll move on to item 7.2, announce vacancies on the Lake Havasu City boards, committees, and commissions. Ms. Williams.
Mayor and City Council, there are several vacancies on Lake Havasu boards, committees, and commissions. The following is a listing of the current vacancies and the upcoming vacancies. Airport Advisory Board, 1 regular member. Board of Adjustment, 3 regular members, 3 alternate members. Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, 2 regular members. Planning and Zoning Commission, 3 regular members. And the Public Safety Personnel Retirement System, 1 regular member. Citizens interested can pick up a packet at City Hall, and they are also available on the city's website. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 7.3 is the city manager's report. Mr. Knutson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Go ahead and get started with the manager's report. Havasu Mobility recently partnered with the National Kidney Foundation of Arizona and Frenzius Medical Care to provide transportation to individuals in the community to and from their dialysis appointments. Like Havasu City's Havasu Mobility is the first pilot program in northwestern Arizona. This foundation wants to expand this program to other areas in the state, and prior to this, grant funds were only used in the metro areas and not in rural communities. So nice job to Havasu Mobility for bringing this service to our residents. The fire department would like to recognize CERT, or our Community Emergency Response Team, and applaud them for reaching a key milestone. They recently installed their 500th residential Knox box in Lake Havasu City. CERT is a vital component of our fire department as they support Lake Havasu City and several other functions as well. On behalf of our firefighters in Lake Havasu City, thank you to CERT. Our Parks and Recreation Department was pleased to host the Journey of Hope cyclists last Wednesday and Thursday as they stopped in Lake Havasu City. The Journey of Hope is a group of dedicated cyclists who cover 32 different states, cycling over a combined 12,000 miles. They are solely comprised of members of Pi Kappa Phi and spread a message of acceptance and understanding for people with disabilities. After spending 2 days at our community center, recharging their bodies, they continued to rest. They continued to rest on the rest of their journey to Washington, D.C., where they will arrive on August 10th. It was our pleasure to host an amazing group of athletes. Just today, Mayor Sheehy proclaimed Lake Havasu City in the month of July as Distracted Driving Awareness Month. Lake Havasu City, Bullhead City, City of Kingman, and Mojave County, along with Sparklight Advertising, led by our own Lake Havasu City MPO. We've all partnered in a public service education campaign designed to reduce fatalities and serious injuries on all public roads, including efforts to combat distracted driving. So be on the lookout for more information, for public announcements in the next month about the dangers of distracted driving and what you can do to prevent it. And finally, a reminder that our city offices are closed on Thursday, July 4th in observance of Independence Day. Police and fire department personnel are always on duty, and your trash and recycling services are not affected by the holiday. All city offices will resume normal schedules on Friday, July 5th. As a reminder, the use of permissible consumer fireworks within the city is now allowed from June 24th through July 6th. 2 times a year that this is permissible, and now is one of those. The other one is over the New Year's Day holiday. Permissible fireworks include fountains and other similar products that stay on the ground. If you want to leave the fireworks to the professionals, come to the Fireworks Over the Lake. The Fireworks Over the Lake Fireworks Show, brought to you by Lake Havasu City and Go Lake Havasu. It'll be on July 4th, and the fireworks start at 9 p.m. While we celebrate the signing of the Declaration of Independence and the birth of our country, Lake Havasu City encourages everyone to have a safe Independence Day. Mayor and Council, that concludes my report.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item 8, our public hearings. We'll start with 8.1, adopt resolution number 19-3316, appointing regular members to the Lake Havasu City Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. Ms. Williams.
Mayor and City Council, the city received one application requesting appointment as a regular member to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. The appointment is necessary to fill an upcoming vacancy of a regular member position. Mr. Jason Keogh's application was provided to you in the packet, and I believe he is here today to answer any questions or make a brief presentation to the council.
Good evening, thank you, Mayor and Council, City staff. Can't believe that it's already been 3 years since I started this gig, but a lot has changed in 3 years. We had a new mayor, new city manager. I've been a part of a lot of projects that add to the parks and rec resources in the city. Seeking reappointment to continue to do that work and be a liaison between the Parks and Rec Department and the community. Any questions?
Excellent. Do any members of the council have any questions? No? Thank you for volunteering. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this matter? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor, motion?
Yes.
I move to adopt resolution number 19-3316, reappointing Jason Keough, I don't know if I'm saying that right, sorry, as a regular member to the Lake Havasu City Parks and Recreation Advisory Board with a term ending June 30th, 2022.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember McCoy and a second from Councilmember Lynn. Is there any further discussion? We are ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Item 8.2 is adopt resolution 19-3317, appointing regular members to the Lake Havasu City Planning and Zoning Commission. Ms. Williams.
Mayor and City Council, the City Clerk's Office received 4 applications requesting consideration for appointment as regular members to the Planning and Zoning Commission. These appointments are needed to fill the upcoming vacancies of 3 regular members. All 4 applications were provided to you in the packet, and Mr. Daniel McGowan and Mr. Donald Bergen are here today to answer any questions and make a brief presentation to the City Council.
Thank you. Mr. McGowan or Mr. Bergen, if you would like to make your way up. We'll start with Mr. Bergen.
Thank you and good evening. My interest and my background basically was all in my letter and my application. But just a couple of things. Beginning of 1990, I retired from AT&T Marketing Management in Colorado Springs, and 4 months later, I moved here. My jobs ever since then have been volunteer work in quite a few different aspects. I've just completed my 3rd term on the Planning and Zoning Commission, including in the past I was president for 6 years. But the past one was a little unusual in that I was serving as an alternate. I did come prepared for every meeting and was seated on several. In fact, in the last 2 months, I was asked to be the chairman of the meeting. So I'm prepared. I have a lot of background in the department's policies and procedures. I know what needs to be done and how to do it. My past decisions have all been made in what I feel is best for the residents of Lake Havasu City, and especially for the neighborhood that may be involved. And basically, that's it, if you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bergen. Do any members of the council have any questions for Mr. Bergen? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. McGowan, are you with us this evening? Doesn't look like it. And the other 2 members that are seeking appointment is Mr. Kevin Murphy, who let us know that he could not be here, and Mr. Chad Nelson. But their information is obviously in our council communication package that we had to review. Do any members of the council have any initial questions before we open the public hearing? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Motion?
Yes.
I move to adopt resolution number 19-3317, appointing Daniel McGowan, Don Bergen, and Chad Nelson as regular members to the Lake Havasu City Planning and Zoning Commission with terms ending June 30th, 2022.
Second.
We have a motion from Vice Mayor Lane and a second from Councilmember Dolan. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 6-1.
All right, the next item is item 8.3, Series 12 Restaurant Liquor License, Golden Phoenix Chinese Restaurant, 1685 Mesquite Avenue, Suite G. Ms. Williams?
Mayor and City Council, Ms. Dean has applied for a Series 12 restaurant liquor license for Golden Phoenix Chinese Restaurant located at 1685 Mesquite Avenue. All posting requirements have been met, all fees have been paid, and no objections were received. The location is properly zoned for a Series 12 restaurant liquor license. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do any members of the council have any questions for Ms. Williams? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Mayor?
Yes.
Motion?
Yes.
I move to recommend that the Arizona Department of Liquor License and Control approve a series number 12 liquor license for Golden Phoenix Chinese Restaurant, 1685 Mesquite Avenue, Suite Number G.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Koch and a second from Councilmember McCoy. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Item 8.4 is truth in taxation hearing and public hearing on the proposed fiscal year 2019-20 property tax levy. Ms. Olson.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This evening is the Truth in Taxation City Property Tax public hearing. This is the next step in the budget process in order for the city to make sure that the community sees what the new tax rate is going to be, or the new levy. The tax rate is actually remaining flat for this year, going into next year. Property taxes that are collected by the city help fund our basic city services such as police, fire, parks, and streets. And it was important, we felt, to note that only 7.8 cents of every dollar paid by Lake Havasu City property owners actually goes to the city. This table just shows the levy rate for 18-19 compared to what we're proposing for fiscal year 19-20. The levy rate, as I mentioned, is the same at 0.6718 per $100 of assessed valuation. And for 19-20, that will be the same. If there's an increase in assessed value, which you can see that there is between the two fiscal years, that generates an additional revenue source based on the increase in the values. So we will have an increase with new construction and with the assessed valuation increase. We will have an additional revenue as a result of leaving the tax rate flat. And then just to note, the additional tax, just to put it in perspective, for every $100,000 of assessed value, it would be $3.14 per year as the tax increase. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do any members of the council have any questions for Ms. Olson? This is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Mayor?
Yes.
Motion?
Yes.
I move to approve a motion to levy the proposed fiscal year 2019-2020 property tax and to assess the levy at the July 9th, 2019 City Council meeting.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Dolan and a second from Vice Mayor Lane. And before we vote, just real quick, we get these tax bills and we see all of this tax, and what Ms. Olson was telling us is that there's lots of different taxing jurisdictions that are on our property tax bill, the city being one of the lowest. So 7.88 cents per is what goes to the city. And again, the rate is remaining flat this year with that increase of revenue going to the services that we'll talk about in a future agenda item. But we are now ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. All right, we're going to do something really special right now. We're going to adjourn to a special meeting. If I could get a motion. And I have a motion and a second, and we are now in a special meeting. We all now go, seems like everything changed, but now we go on to item 8.6, adopt resolution number 19-3319, adopting the fiscal year 2019-20 final budget. Ms. Olson.
Thank you, Mayor. The next step related to the budget is to adopt the final budget. You may recall the tentative budget was adopted on June 11th at your last council meeting. So the tentative budget was published twice in the local newspaper as required by law. At this point, when you adopted the tentative budget, you set the cap of the budget. So this budget now can't be increased, but it can be changed within that cap. However, the budget that we're presenting to you has not been changed since adoption on June 11th, so there's nothing additional to report there. And just as a reminder, it's a balanced budget with no additional debt. This table shows the levy rates again, and we're talking about the July 9th meeting where the property tax special district rates will be adopted. The proposed rates that are included in this 1920 final budget that we're requesting that you adopt includes the city property tax that we just discussed on the last item, the irrigation and drainage district, which is the water fund. It's being kept the same. It's flat from last year. The improvement district number 2 has a rate of 0.737, will generate $16,001, and then improvement district number 4 generates a little over $59,000. And those improvement districts are just for specific areas. One is for the London Bridge Plaza, I believe that's number 2, and improvement district number 4 is for the downtown, that median where Wheeler Park is in that area. And with that, I'll answer any questions on the final budget.
Do any members of the council have any questions or comments? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Mayor? Okay, David.
No, please.
All right, Councilmember Groh?
I would like to move to adopt resolution number 19-3319, adopting the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget in the amount of $148,611,388.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Grote and a second from Vice Mayor Lane. For those watching at home and in the audience, this is the most important work that the City Council does in a year, is this item here. This has been several public hearings that we've had, and this comes towards the end. So it may seem like there's not a lot of conversation or discussion right now, but there has been leading up to it. So just to remind some points and highlights of the budget, this is a balanced budget with no debt issued within this budget. Again, the property tax remains the same. All eligible employees with the city will receive a step increase if eligible. It also funds the positional analysis study that we've talked about several times, and it invests in our infrastructure with a fully funded CIP or capital improvement plan with an identified funding source. So we were able to take the priorities of the citizens and the community and wrap it up into the spending plan. A big thank you to all city staff that spends countless hours on this, to Jill and Cassandra in our finance department, and to all the folks that make this happen. We appreciate it. So with that, I believe we have a motion and a second. We're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And again, we're going to do something very special and item 8.7, and we're going to reconvene to our regular meeting. So we're back. Item 8.8 is approve solid waste facilities operation agreement with Allied Waste Transportation, Inc. for the operation and management of the landfill. Mr. Knutson?
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. Before Council for your consideration is an agreement with Allied Waste Transportation, otherwise known as Allied Waste. This is I think the father company of the Republic Services, as we know it in our community, that provides the residential trash service and recycling services to the community. So we started a process a few months back where the city sent out a RFP, or request for proposals, and we solicited bids and proposals from the private sector. And then the city, through that process, identified Republic Services as the best firm to negotiate a contract for the operation of the landfill. So this is a landfill that's owned by the city, but we partner with, in this case, will be Republic Services to manage and administer the operations of the landfill. This agreement before you is for the lifetime of the landfill. So this, which is advantageous from the city's perspective, because it allows us to identify fees for the residents and some other important aspects of how we want that landfill to operate for what we anticipate to be the next 37 years, according to our estimates. And then at the end of the landfill, when it closes, the Republic Services would then be responsible for the closure of the landfill, which is comes with a lot of financial responsibility. We're talking about millions of dollars for the closure. And then they'd also be responsible for post-closure activities. So 30 years after the landfill closes, there's monitoring that takes place for the next 30 years. And any occurrences of violations that would occur in that time would then be the responsibility of Republic Services. As part of the contract C, you'll see here too that the city will receive 20% of the gross revenues collected at the landfill. We identified controlled increases in any tipping fees for the customers out there. We tied it to a consumer price index for water, wastewater, and trash. So there's a max increase of 4% per year, but you're looking at the last couple of years, you're looking at about a 2 to 3% increase. So we're trying to keep those the cost of use of the landfill to a minimum for our residents. And as part of that process, we identified a two-tier for fees. There's going to be a fee for residents, which is a little over $33 for the tipping fee, and then a higher fee for non-residents. So our residents that already pay into the property tax and support the city operations will then be able to receive a less fee at the landfill. One of the things we've heard quite a bit about is the line at the landfill. So part of this agreement identifies the construction of a second scale house. So that'll allow for quicker access in and out of the landfill. And then there's also a process that was discussed where there might be some, I think it was called Blue Card or something along those lines, where your vehicle can be weighed beforehand, which allows you to get in and out of the landfill in a much quicker pace. So hopefully we'll see some lines diminish out there. It's important for the city through this contract to limit the amount of trash that comes into the landfill from outside of Lake Havasu City. In future years, we're talking about a very long contract here. We don't want to see in years down the road where we're the dumping ground for Mojave County. So we want that landfill needs to be preserved in a way that it's our residents that are utilizing the landfill. We see a lot of instances where folks that go out to the landfill are not tarping their loads, and what that causes is litter and debris throughout the community. It's in our neighborhoods. You certainly see it up and down Highway 95 between, when you get in proximity to the landfill. This agreement allows Republic Services to fine anybody that goes to the landfill without a tarp. So hopefully the goal there is compliance, and we'll get more folks to tarp their loads and keep our community much cleaner than currently is. And then a few other things that are tied to the contract, but I kind of leave it at that. And Matt and Eric from Republic Services are in the audience. If you have any questions for them or myself or any of the team, be happy to address them.
Thank you. Do any members of the council have any initial questions? Yeah, Vice Mayor Lane.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Knudsen, can you explain to the public what a tipping fee is, how much trash that actually is? Is that tipping over your trash can? Is that a pickup truck full? Is that a dump truck full? How much is a tipping?
I'm going to ask Matt Cross from Republic Services, and allow him an opportunity to talk a little bit about the operation out there.
Thank you, Mayor Sheehy, Council. It's a pleasure to be here again tonight. And first and foremost, I have to thank Jess, Kelly, Jill, and a lot of members of the city staff. As you can tell, Jess has become an expert on landfills over the last, I'd say over the last year. And a landfill is a very complex thing out there. To us, it looks like just a big pile of dirt, but underneath that is a whole bunch of stuff. And there's a lot of compliance. Jess, you did an excellent job of explaining that. So Councilmember Lane, in our business, we call it a tipping fee, which really it's your gate rate. And so ultimately, your gate rate is $33.07. It will be under the new deal. Right now it's $32.95, so it's going up, 12 cents. And that's just what we have to charge. We have minimum, and that's per ton. So you can bring in 2,000 pounds of waste for $33. And we also have a minimum there. And our minimum, I believe, is $6, and then it's just prorated from there on up. So I hope that answers your question, and I'm here to answer any other questions that are out there.
Just a statement. Thank you for answering that question. I know I go out, I use the landfill quite often. I have 15 palm trees, so I fill up the bed of my truck. It's only $6 to dump the whole truck. I just wanted to make sure it was going to stay at that and not go up to $33. And, and I do cover my load. But also, as Mr. Knudsen mentioned, the card, that has really sped up my time when I have to go out there because now I can pay. I go over the scale one time, I pay. When I leave the dump, I don't have to go back through the line. So that really does help quite a bit.
Well, and what we call that is a tear card. So many of you who, and I see this gentleman shaking his head, if you're up there enough and you're a commercial or a resident, we're eventually going to pull you aside and say, hey, let's just weigh you empty. We'll store it in the computer. We give you a card that has a number attached to it. So when you come up, show us a card, we pull up your weight. So therefore, while you're there, we already know your empty weight. So now you're standing there with your full weight. We can charge you right there. You can dump and then move on. And like City Manager Knudsen said, that we in our plan we are going to put in a second scale, which will allow us then to weigh you in and weigh you out, and lines should go, and that's to improve customer service.
Great. Any other questions from the council?
Might I ask, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Can I ask, how's that going to work if you show up without a tarp on your load?
Well, fortunately, under this deal, City Manager Knudsen has left that up to us to find. And so what also is it gives us the ability, because currently right now our fines are so low that I have people that come up there and like, hey, you need to cover your load. They're like, find me. And I'm like, oh, what we found out is the cost of a tarp and the time and effort to tarp is more than the fine, so they just take the fine. And so I got reoccurring problems, and he's given us the ability to say, hey, at a certain point, we'll cut you off, meaning we're not going to allow you to put your trash in our city. It's just unacceptable, and we need to clean it up.
Excellent. Any other questions? Councilmember McCoy?
I would just like to make a comment real quick. Has nothing to do with the landfill, but I want to thank you for everything that you've done for the city. And, you know, I know a lot of people were skeptical about the new the garbage cans. And, you know, from my perspective, they've been great. I can carry the garbage out if I need with a little help.
You mentioned the garbage cans.
Yeah,
you did it?
Passed.
Okay, I take the recycling.
Ms. McCoy, you don't know how much that means to me. I've been a resident of this city for 14 years. I moved my family out here and the little kids. This is my hometown. I will never present this council something that I don't firmly believe in, not just from a businessman, but from a resident. And when all's said and done, you remember how we used to pick up or throw your garbage, 30,000 pounds a day per individual. Imagine doing that in this heat. Year to date, 0 work comp injuries, and my turnover is some of the lowest in the company. So mission accomplished.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. Councilmember Koch?
Just another comment, Matt. It's been great to work with you over the years, and I will tell you I get nothing but compliments from the neighbors and residents that I talk to about your staff. So they're wonderful out there too, and people notice it, so they must be very happy.
Appreciate it. And I sat next to this wonderful lady next to me tonight, and I introduced myself, and I heard the same thing. And that's why we're in business. We are a customer service company who services waste and recycling, and we're honored to be partnered with the city for as long as we have.
Yeah, we had, we're talking tonight about an agreement that's going to last potentially 37 years. It was just a couple of years ago when we were talking about the trash cans that we were talking about an agreement that might have been 9 years for the life of our landfill. So our residents really have done a great job using the recycling program. Our coffee with the mayor a month and a half ago turned into coffee with Matt Cross, and he taught us all about recycling, which was an amazing thing. So if you catch that on Channel 4 or on the website, you can learn about all of the recycling to continue the life of our landfill for years to come. Any other questions or comments from members of the council before we open the public hearing? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Motion. I move to approve the solid waste facilities operation agreement with Allied Waste Transportation, Inc.
Second.
We have a motion from Vice Mayor Lane and a second from Councilmember McCoy. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
All right, next item is item 8.9, adopt resolution number 19-3322, approving Lake Havasu City Consolidated Court lease agreement with Mojave County. Judge Kalali.
Thank you, Mayor Sheehy, council members. I appreciate the opportunity to address you this evening. I bring before you two items for your consideration. The first is a resolution that would, in effect, deconsolidate the courts. Change is inevitable, and whether or not we learn from that change is up to us. But this is one of those changes where we believe that we can grow and learn from that and move forward. And so it would have the effect of deconsolidating the courts on August 31st of this year. As you will see in the next item, we would remain in the same building for the time being until something else was decided.
Yeah, so is it?
Yeah, it's backwards.
Yep.
This
Yeah,
matter
so right
was
now,
brought before the Board of Supervisors a couple weeks ago and approved unanimously.
yeah, so it looks like on 8.9, the item in front of us today is, or excuse me, at this time, is the lease agreement with Mojave
The
County.
lease agreement was first?
Yes,
Okay.
sorry, yeah.
Well, so the lease agreement means that
Yeah.
we stay in the court, and then we will deconsolidate after that.
Yeah.
So with that, are there any questions?
All right. So are there any questions on the lease agreement? There are companion items, obviously. So any questions on the lease agreement before we open the public hearing? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
motion?
Yes.
I move to adopt resolution number 19-3322, approving the lease agreement with Mojave County for the municipal court and authorize the city manager to execute the agreement on behalf of the city.
Second the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We have a motion from Councilmember Dolan and a second from Councilmember Grote. The lease agreement is for where the confusion was. If we don't do the lease agreement first and didn't have a place to be, we can't do the next item. So now depending on the outcome of this vote, we will have a place to be. So any further conversation? All right, we are ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item 8.10, adopt resolution number 19-3321, approving the amendment and modification to the intergovernmental agreement with Mojave County for the consolidated administration of operations of lower courts. Judge Clawley.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me try again here.
Yes.
So this one is the agreement that would effectively deconsolidate the courts. So there would be a municipal court and a justice court still in the same building at this time, but would give us the opportunity to, through change, to grow.
Excellent. Are there any questions from the council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Dolan.
I just want to thank the judge. I think this is definitely looking towards the future, and it definitely something we need to do. I know it's going to be a lot of hard work the next 3 years, also looking at a new courthouse in the future. But I think definitely from what I've seen in the last year, it's definitely the direction we need to go in. So I just want to thank you and your staff for the time you put into it.
Thank you, Councilmember Dolan. Appreciate that.
All right, for the audience and the folks watching at home, deconsolidation in this instance means we just, by technicality, will deconsolidate in place. So we'll stay where we're at in the facility on College Drive, but it now allows city staff and Judge Kalali and his team to be able to plan, as Councilmember Dolan said, for the future. As the community has grown, so has the caseload that we're experiencing out at the courts, and space is a concern that we have right now, sharing that space with the municipal court, which Judge Kalali runs, the Justice Court, and then the Superior Court, sharing the same facility. As a smaller community, it made financial sense to the taxpayers to do that, but now as we've grown, it is not as beneficial to the taxpayers of Lake Havasu City, and so we had to take a look at that. But their changes is tough, and we'll make our way. We're undoing a 25-year relationship that we've had, but for our staff that is out at the courts. We appreciate everything you're doing. Bear with us as we go through this deconsolidation, but we'll make our way through and be stronger for it in the service of our citizens, of our community, and what we do. So, do any council members have any? Oh, Councilmember Lynn? Yes.
I just have a quick comment.
Yes.
Actually, a question. Now that we're going to be deconsolidating, could you tell me the ease that we have now of the clients that are using the system between the county and the city? Is it going to be a pretty smooth transaction of having to separate like that for the clients that have to use the system?
So do you mean smooth transaction as in what we have to do to deconsolidate, or the relationship between us and those who come to use the court? Because I can tell you the deconsolidation itself will not be smooth.
Yeah,
It is
well,
what
I'm
it
talking
is.
more the clients.
Yes. There will be some adjustment. There will absolutely be some adjustment. At some point, anyway, we have been so busy, we are so busy that our lobby is crowded most of the days. Those kind of things come into play anyway, and there is a period of time that people have to wait, and we want to address that and be able to move forward with the changes that are happening in the city. And as the city grows, we want to be able to keep up with that growth.
Any other questions or comments from members of the council? Okay, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Motion?
Yes.
I move to adopt resolution number 19-3321, approving the amendment and modification to the intergovernmental agreement with Mojave County for the consolidation, administration, and operation of the lower courts.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember McCoy and a second from Councilmember Koch. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item, item 8.11, approve a 5-year animal care and shelter services contract with the Western Arizona Humane Society. Chief Doyle.
Mayor, Council, I'll try to make this brief. I know everybody's probably here for the flood control district, so. Mayor, Council, as you know, the police department handles animal control services for Lake Havasu City, and for many years we've been contracting for sheltering services with the Western Arizona Humane Society. This is a renewal of the contract that expires here June 30th. There have been some kind of significant changes to the contract. Some of the minor changes were some housekeeping, some verbiage. We added some code language in there. The major change to this contract is we have been for the last probably 5 years, we've been paying $250,000 a year for our sheltering contract. We desired to lower that amount. We sat down with the staff and board members of WAS, and we negotiated towards this contract that we're presenting to you, and that is that we would drop from $250,000 a year to $225,000 for the first 2 years, and then the next 3 years it would drop to $200,000 a year, and it would be a 5-year contract rather than a renewal and coming back before you every year. And that is the most significant change. Other than that, the operation between animal control services and the shelter pretty much stay the same. And I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Chief. Do any members of the council have any questions of the chief? Councilmember Lynn?
Sure. Earlier in the packet, we had a thing on there for the Western Arizona Humane Society quarterly reporting.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm trying to get some numbers in my head here. So for $225,000 per year, approximately how many dogs do we bring in?
So a full year example would be our 17-18. So in 17 and 18, we delivered 392 animals to Humane Society. We had 208 public impounds. If you're kind of breaking it down, a cost per animal, is I'm assuming. So if you just break down the animals that we bring to them for fiscal year 17-18, it would come to about $637 an animal. If you add in public people that bring in animals to them, add that, it's about 416. So they do get people that come to WAS that find a stray and bring it straight to WAS. That is factored into the statistics.
Okay, but what they're actually receiving from us, even though I know you can't break down exactly what that is, but it's about $637 per dog.
Factoring in the animals that my animal control officers bring to them, yes.
Okay. And then I'm trying to just be transparent here with the report.
Sure.
Approximately how many of those dogs, I don't know if you can answer that or somebody from WAS can later, are returned to their owners?
So I can answer that. So out of the our impounds that we bring in, we average about 66, roughly 65 to 66% are returned to owner. So for instance, in fiscal year 17-18, out of the 392 animals that we impounded, we returned 260 to the owners, and 132 of those were retained by WAS. Of the 208 animals that were turned into WAS, they returned 42 to their owner for about a 20% return rate.
Okay. And then I have one other question, even though I know we're going to have a lot of discussion here. Do we have an option B?
Well, there's always an option B. If you're asking, can we provide sheltering services ourselves within the city? Well, yeah, obviously we could, but we also run into that kind of risk versus reward of how much it's going to cost us to do it, and that was one of the concerns we had when we were talking the $250,000. Is we were getting up into that area where we were questioning with city staff and city resources, could we do it ourselves? I think now that as we are lowering that cost, we're really getting to that area where we're going to have to hire, if we brought it in-house, we're going to have to hire more employees. So now, in addition to the cost of the employees, you have employee liability. You also have the liability that we now take on for sheltering services, increased insurance, obviously either building a facility, leasing a facility, and there's not too many animal shelter facilities floating out there for lease. So even if we looked into leasing facilities, and then the amount of money it would take for us to then go in and retrofit and kind of do all the things that they did over at WAS with their new facility. Now, we wouldn't need that big and that thing, but we would still have to retrofit their standards. There's a lot to creating a shelter. We can't just throw some kennels in a room and do that. So we can do it ourselves, but can we do it cheaper overall than what we're getting this contract to? Now we've negotiated it to a point where it's becoming less reasonable for us to do it ourselves, is probably the best way I would say.
One last question. So I was watching the supervisors meeting this morning, and the county's going to be taking over the shelter there. Would we not be able to use that as an option?
I'm sure the county will want to help us out. Yeah, the problem then comes into, so logistically, because a lot of times we gotta, what we can do and then what becomes kind of a logistical pain. Let's say we told the county that we're going to use the shelter in Kingman. So now as we pick up dogs each day, or I say dogs, it could be, we picked up a badger the other day, so animals. It took us a while. It was a funny looking dog until we figured out what it was. So we bring the animal in, and so now we're not going to be making daily trips back and forth. So now we would have to establish some sort of temporary kennel system at the police department, and then we got to transport. Because obviously, if you're not home and I pick your dog up and then drive it up to Kingman, and then you come in 8 hours later or the next morning, I'm like, now you got to drive to Kingman to get your animal back. So we would actually have to hold it here for that 3 to 5 days that we have within our ordinance on holding animals, and then we would have to transport it up. So now we would still be running into all those logistics and the things, because now we're holding the sheltering liability for that animal here at the police department. So we're still going to have an expense to do something within the city as a temporary shelter. So yeah, those are all possibilities, but each one of them kind of comes with its own difficulties. And
I have a question to follow up.
Yes, Councilmember Dolan.
Councilmember Lynn said. I guess we'll kind of just get to the point. I guess the reason I have a concern about option B is maybe we can get a little history of how this process started. We go through the RFP, and correct me if I'm wrong, city attorney and city manager. We go through the RFP process. We have a service, so we reach out to the city through the newspaper, put it out there for anybody that's interested. So the WAS came back with a letter of interest, okay, and then that means we can start negotiating with them. Unfortunately, through the police chief's office, he's supposed to negotiate. It's my understanding that the Humane Society did not want to negotiate with the police chief. He did not want to negotiate with the city manager, and we were given a take it or leave it at $250,000 or nothing, take it or leave it, which then got us asking questions. Well, what does leave it mean? So that's the history that we're coming in with today, and I just wanted to put that out there because it did happen, and that's and then also we are getting some stuff from the community about some concerns about the Humane Society itself. So as you can see, that's why we have a full room today, but I just wanted to point that out. That was part of the process that left some of us asking, do we have a plan B? And it's not just because we're trying to save money, it's we want to know what other options are out there. So thank you.
And Councilperson Dolan, I'd also point out, we've gone out to bid to try to generate some other interest of maybe a little bit of competition. Both times we've only had the one bidder, and that was through the WAS. So.
Any other council members have any comments or questions before we open the public hearing?
Well, it's a matter of curiosity, Mr. Mayor, but after the Badger comment, Mr. Police Chief, I'd like to know, can you enlighten us as to what other sorts of, I mean, I've seen your police officers gather up rattlesnakes. Can you give me an idea of what other kinds of animals you might encounter over the course of a year?
Well, we've encountered skunks, badgers, beavers, cats, dogs. Could have had a mountain lion a little while ago, but it was too fast. So no. But yeah, that's about it. We don't get too many strange and exotic animals, and we try to avoid the donkeys. We don't have kennels big enough for them.
All right, this is a public hearing, so we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Again, you didn't have to sign up to talk, but we did have a few folks do that, so we'll start there. Miss Frankie Lyons, if you would like to make your way to the podium. And then right after Miss Lyons will be Mr. Stephen Jenkins.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. For those who don't know me, I'm Frankie Lyons with Veterans United Arizona. We've worked closely with WASA for Vets for Pets. We've been able to have 15, 20 animals that veterans have been able to raise as their companions. We're also bringing in a program where we have an organization out of Texas that is going to train dogs for our vets for free as PTSD dogs. This facility is really important. My concern with the facility in Kingman, if we ship our animals up there, they're going to be overcrowded and have the same issue. And then if we get crowded here, you're going to have to be euthanizing these animals, and it's not fair for that. Our community has come together for our animals and our pets, and whatever issue they have with their administration there is really not the business of the city council. A corporation has a board. That board is responsible for operating and making their administrator work. That administrator doesn't just do stuff just because she can. She has a board that guides her. And if you're a strong board, you can.
If you just, and for everyone, you have to address the council.
Okay.
So if you just look our way,
Oh, okay.
We'll catch you on the camera. People at home will like to see your smiling face. So yeah, just if everyone that's going to address us this evening faces
Okay,
the
but
council.
it is
Thank you.
important that we keep our WASA and keep the programs going. Their administration is always under the guidance of the board, and it's the board to make the difference. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Stephen Jenkins. And behind Mr. Jenkins will be Mr. Mike Bonney.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. My name is Steve Jenkins. I'm the Administrative Manager with the Western Arizona Humane Society. It's a pleasure to be here tonight representing the Humane Society and our team of dedicated board members, valuable employees, our wonderful volunteers, and tonight, unfortunately, I'm also representing my boss, Patty Gilmore, because she is out of the country on a much-needed vacation. Many of these people are here with us tonight to show support as well, so I was very grateful for that. Tonight, the City Council is gathered here to vote on approval of item 8.11 for a contract between Lake Havasu City and the Western Arizona Humane Society for animal care. Our Humane Society is now able to offer services far superior to what we were offering only a few short months ago. We're able to do this because of our fundraising efforts and the incredible support of our community helping us with our new building. In designing our new building, our relationship with our local animal control and police officers was a top priority. An air-conditioned Sally Port is now set for all arrivals, making the intake process easy for the Lake Havasu City Police Department and also quiet for all of our new local neighbors. The facility is equipped with all new kennels that include a private nursery for canine mothers, a separate area for both quarantine and medical isolation. We have full in-house diagnostic lab systems, dental x-ray, and soon to come, a complete new x-ray system. Cleanliness is an essential key in containing disease and illness in the animal shelter environment. Each of the rooms that we carefully designed for animal housing has its own air conditioner unit, which is now being treated with ultra UV light for sterilization in the air. Each room also has its own power washer station that aids in disinfecting and cleaning all kennels each day. These systems are already showing results with healthier animals and a cleaner, fresher environment for our animals and our employees alike. Avoiding cross-contamination is paramount, and our new system allows us to achieve this. It's my hope that agenda item 8.11 is approved tonight. The Western Arizona Humane Society looks forward to the next 5 years of partnership with the City of Lake Havasu, and thank you so much for allowing me to speak with you tonight.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Jenkins, Vice Mayor Lane has a question for you.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think you're probably the one to answer this question the most for me. I've been crunching the numbers and going through this quite a bit, and the one question nobody's been able to answer for me is, what is the average length of stay from the time the police department drops a dog off until that dog leaves your facility and it's either been adopted by somebody else? And according to the numbers, we've got 260 were returned to owner. Of that, 132 were returned to, you took them in for adoption and adopted them out. How many days are those animals actually in your facility?
I don't know that I could truly give you a good answer on that. I could go back and get you an answer on that. I didn't come prepared for it. My best explanation, though, is some dogs are very desirable and might come in, and after they cleared a 3 to 5 day waiting period, then are maybe spay and neutered and vaccinated and prepared for adoption. Some dogs are much more desirable, and they might leave anywhere 2 to 3 weeks after the city's dropped them off with them. Some breeds are less desirable for certain people, so those breeds might be with us upwards of 6 months to 2 years. So it's hard to give you an average, considering it's more breed specific, to be honest with you. Lots of people are looking for small, fluffy dogs, and my kennels might be stocked with maybe 10 to 20 bully breeds, and they're not getting adopted.
So maybe that's why nobody can answer the question. How long the
Yeah,
animals are there?
It's a big puzzle piece, to be honest with you.
Oh, I'm sure that the 260 that returned to owner were returned within 1 to 5 days.
Usually 1 to 5 days. We take ownership after the 5th day, so if the owner still comes back and wants to re-adopt or pay the fees to the city, we go ahead and try to get them back after even that day, though.
Okay, and then medical costs per animal. Each of these animals, I'm assuming, has to go under some sort of medical care when it comes in?
Some come in and all of them get vaccinated upon intake. If we can prove through a city license that they have a rabies vaccine already that's up to date, we don't need to vaccinate them with that, but each animal arriving gets a DAPP and a Bordetella for canines, and felines get a FRVCP upon intake. That's to help us control illness within the center, because we don't know what these dogs might have been exposed to or possibly never vaccinated. So just the cost for that alone, between exam and vaccination of 2 vaccines, we're starting at about $30 to $45 in vaccines. If you add a rabies on top of that, it's another $20 value. And then spay and neuter cost, if they come in unaltered, we average and we charge the public for our SNP program about $95. So if we use that as a figure, we're up to about $150 right now in medical. If they have upper respiratory or any type of cough, cold, something that we have to get them ready before they can go to a home, then you have to figure in antibiotics and treatments with the doctor and things like that as well.
And is the cost higher for the badgers?
Pardon?
Is that other cost higher for badgers?
Thankfully, they didn't bring us that one.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And then Councilmember Lynn has a question as
Yes.
well.
Can you
Mr.
tell me
Jenkins.
what the adoption fees are?
The adoption fees, the standard adoption fees are $155 for a puppy, and I want to say it's my staff's here, my front desk staff. $135 for an adult dog, $155 for a puppy, and then we do specials quite often. If we're at PetSmart, they're much lower. They're at about $69. We have a great sponsorship with PetSmart or partnership, and they help subsidize some of the adoptions through grants, so we can go out to their facility and offer them for much lower.
So when the dog is adopted out, the dog or cat is up, are they already fixed?
Yes.
They're already fixed?
Fully vaccinated, microchipped, and spayed or neutered.
Okay, thank you.
Do any other members of the council have any questions for Mr. Jenkins? All right, thank you. We might have some questions for you
Sure.
later. but-
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, then Mr. Mike Bonney. And this is the last person that has signed up, so after that, then you can just make your way to the podium and state your name for the record.
Hi there. My name is Mike Bonney. Mr. Mayor, thank you, and distinguished members of council. I wasn't planning on talking at this early stage of the public hearing, but I guess since you call my name, I have no choice. I'd like to thank Chief Doyle for the excellent presentation. He hit all of the points of the contract. To Councilwoman Lynn's comment about the Board of Supervisors meeting this morning, and the county declining to renew or at least extend a 30-day extension on the current contract between WAS and the county. What you may not know is the county did decide to take it in-house. They're going to lose $466,000 per year on taking it in-house. That's their numbers, not mine. So yeah, to Chief Doyle's comment about can we take it back in-house, yes you can, but there's a lot of extenuating circumstances that I believe council should take serious consideration of. Can you take it in? Yes, maybe $300,000 a year versus $225,000. I emailed each one of you prior to today's meeting to list, I'm speaking not as a former board member, a disgruntled employee, or a disgruntled volunteer, or a current board member. My affiliation and my interest in this contract is purely from the community and the city's perspective, or as a resident of the city. I will admit, cheerfully, that I am or my firm and myself is the CPA firm for WAS. I know from firsthand experience that the negotiations were done in good faith by both parties. Both parties conceded $25,000. To Councilmember Dolan's point earlier in the presentation of being presented with a take it or leave it attitude, you're absolutely correct. Through some efforts of some board members and other individuals seriously concerned about this issue, got both parties back to the table. Thank you, City Manager, for accommodating that. I also pointed out in that email to you that the police chief, as he indicated, I believe, without saying it, is in favor of this contract. It's his department that's taking the $25,000 hit on his budget. WAS, by their part, is conceding $25,000. They'll have to find a different way to raise that revenue, to replace that revenue. The community totally behind this organization. As an indication, they raised $1.1 million from community funds to renovate that facility on Sweetwater that provides a state-of-the-art facility not only for Lake Havasu City, but probably the best in the state of Arizona. Also, would like to remind council, this contract is between WAS and the city. What you may have heard or received letters regarding management and things of that nature, as the lady before me spoke, that really should not be a consideration in deciding whether you're in favor of or against. I believe that you have to look at what the numbers are and what's in the best interest of the community as a whole, city council, and without regards to the organization, quite frankly, it's what's best for Lake Havasu City residents and what's best for the community and what's the best deal that is available that will make your budget work. And not that I can answer any of your questions, but I'm certainly here to try if you want. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Mr. Bonney, what was the number raised?
1.1 million was raised from the community, and they spent over $2 million. So do the math. They put $900,000 of their own money that they had raised from other sources and from other revenue streams to be able to provide the over $2 million in renovation costs.
Thank you. Mr. Dolan, did you have a question?
Mr. Mayor, yeah, I just want to make a comment to Mr. Bonney and Frankie Lyons that, yeah, I understand our job today is to either approve or decline a contract. My biggest concern, as I'm sure we're going to hear from everybody coming up today, they're either going to be 100% for WAS or having concerns about WAS. I just like to clarify I'm 100% in support of WAS as an organization. My biggest concern is 1B of the contract is contractor agrees to perform services in accordance with Arizona, Mojave County, and Sydney ordinances, laws, and regulations. And some of the stuff that I'm hearing implies that they're not following that. And that's some of the concerns that I'd like to have some answers today to make sure that the organization is under the proper leadership and those things are being addressed, because I'm being told by people in the community that they're not being addressed, and some things have been going on for quite a while. So while I understand people feel that's not our job, that is our job before I go into a contract to make sure that they are following the laws. So that's, I think, as we'll see from the many people coming up, either being 100% for or having concerns against, I think we just need to take that into consideration. That's my biggest concern coming into it, is making sure.
And point well taken, Councilman Dolan and Councilwoman Lynn as well. And I'm not in a position to address those. As I stated, I'm not on the board. I'm not a volunteer, and I'm not an employee. I have no firsthand knowledge of any of those, from what I've seen, undocumented, unsubstantiated allegations. It's pretty easy to make allegations if you don't have to back it up with documentation. And I would ask you, and leave you with one final thought, that I would ask you to each listen to the voice of the crowd as opposed to the voice in the crowd. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, if anyone else would like to address City Council in this matter, as I said earlier, just make your way to the podium, state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Robert Loring, member of the Community Businessman. Mayor, Council, this is a difficult situation. I'm not happy to find myself here. We're great supporters of WAS and the animals. I think many that know us know we support the animals as much as any family in the community. In fact, I've seen you at a lot of events, Mayor. So this is very difficult. However, we have a dirty little secret in this town that I've uncovered, and it needs to be addressed. Many in the community are concerned about these issues, and the number of concerned folks is growing by the day. I just happened to have stumbled across all this, and quite frankly, I'm upset enough to stand before you. Not-for-profit entities are, for the most part, noble organizations, but like many noble causes, the best of intentions can lead to the most horrible of actions. It has come to the attention of some concerned residents of Lake Havasu that some of these organizations run and operate with little to no oversight other than their board of directors. If this board is co-opted for well-meaning intentions, but in fact are not overseeing the operation or governing correctly, then we can see negligent handling of donations, overspending to the advantage of good friends without appropriate handling of conflicts of interest, and actions that question personal integrity. As I understand it, City Council of Lake Havasu has contractual relationships with the Western Arizona Humane Society. I hope to shed some light on some practices and concerns about this organization. And again, a noble organization, good things. I attempted to purchase some real estate from this organization, discovered the executive director assumed authority for the organization and rejected offers without any authorization or parameters set forth by the board of directors. Period. While I'm not here before you because of a real estate transaction, I am concerned about practices that show this organization does not comply with basic nonprofit standards for operation. Please know that it isn't just me who has these concerns. Many members of the board have resigned in recent years due to their concern about similar issues of integrity. In that regard, I know of 4 individuals who have resigned in the last 2 years for similar reasons and have included their letters of resignation in your packet. I have concern that vulnerable adults may be taken advantage of by the executive director under the guise of fundraising, and have included a complaint made against the executive director and her husband, thankfully independent from her position with the Humane Society. This suit alleges fraud and abuse against a vulnerable adult. What is left of the board are individuals that appear to enjoy hearing what the executive director has decided on their behalf, and not what the board has authorized. Examples of this lack of authorization include granting contracts on behalf of a nonprofit organization without benefit of obtaining bids and resulting in lucrative contracts going to friends of the director. Human resource practices that call into question whether labor laws are being respected. Ignoring board member requests for an accounting of construction costs when they exceeded those budgeted by almost 80%. The organization has a wonderful mission, and this mission ought not be sullied by the self-centered and grandiose misuse of authority in the context of practices which do not meet relevant standards for nonprofit organizations. One of the biggest issues that we see that comes from this behavior is that good giving community members stop donating and volunteering their resources. And the recipients of these services are the ones that always end up suffering. And when good people become disillusioned, this is exactly what happens. I would ask the city council, I'm not here about the vote, I would ask the city council to seek to investigate this organization, to ensure that donations made by the generous residents of this city are not misused. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the city council on this matter? Again, just keep making your way to the podium. State your name for the benefit of the city clerk.
Hi. I really don't want to be doing this, but I can't live with myself if I don't speak up for these animals. My name is Cheryl, and I have been a dog trainer for over 30 years. I specialize in dog aggression in both California and Havasu. I thought I would take my expertise and volunteer at the Humane Society. Over the course of 2.5 years, I gave them up to 40 hours a week. I have spent many hours and dollars helping those in need with their animals in this community. The director offered me the position of director of fundraising to replace Kathy Odell. I was taken to lunch to discuss my duties. 3 hours later, about how to go after the elder generation, wine and dine them, they're lonely, make them feel special, and at the time, close the deal, talk with the animals and tug on their heartstrings, and to get them to leave their estates to WADs. I was left shocked. To me, it wasn't a normal talk of fundraising. I was being instructed to manipulate. I was so upset. I would never manipulate an elderly or anyone and talk them into something that was not their idea. See lawsuit of McCormick versus Gilmore. This is not a no-kill ethical center, as it is put forth to the community. The definition of a no-kill ethical center is, per Arizona Humane Society, is very different than what's going on here. She routinely orders employees to choose which dogs or cats they euthanize, some with good cause and some with not any cause. Don't say you're a no ethical kill center if you're not. She requires all owners turn-ins to sign for euthanasia form to avoid affecting WAD's kill numbers to make herself look good. She hires employees that are afraid of certain breeds and are afraid of certain dogs, and they do the temperament test. Human failure costs the dog's life, and they are killed. The director instructed and demanded an employee to shoot a dog in a closed kennel with a gun. Utilizing inadequate trained employees to euthanize animals without a vet supervision not only shelter animals, but the community's loved family members. They are told it's peaceful and caring euthanasia. I personally know this is not the truth. They have led dogs past dark dogs barking in kennels to a small room with a freezer with dead animals in the room. It smells like death. The animals know and sense it. They weigh them, they put them on the floor, they muzzle them, and two strangers with glasses and gloves and a syringe come to end the life. Sorry. Many times they do not do it quickly, as in your packet of ex-employees' letters. The techs blow out the veins, they try another leg, they blow out that leg, they blow out the next vein, and time is ticking. 45 minutes, they can't kill the dog. They need to call someone to come and give the shot under the tongue. After struggling and the medicine burning in the dog, they finally have no heartbeat. They put the dog in a trash bag, they put it in the freezer for pickup for cremation. This is the truth, and it's heartbreaking, and it's not a humane euthanasia. The director has allowed her son to work at the Humane Society. He has many times told all of us his mom owns this place. He is a drug and alcohol abuser. He has hit 4 employees, groped women, volunteers, and employees. He has literally threatened with physical harm to our 70-year-old vet and the vet tech during surgery. Everyone still had to endure her son over and over again. Many dogs have lost their lives because of the director's overreacting impulses. She refuses to put in training for safety for her staff and volunteers on dog or dog and human. In my experience, this vile behavior has led to many good, caring employees, board members, and volunteers to leave. When good people leave and do nothing to fight wrong, we are as guilty as those doing the wrong. Please open an investigation on the facility and the practices. I am not against this contract going to them. I just don't feel it's fair for the animals. Thanks.
Thank you. And Cheryl, your last name, I'm sorry, just for the clerk.
Dom, D-O-M-M.
Thank you very much. And if anyone else would like to address the City Council on this matter, just please make your way to the podium and state your name for the record. Once we close the public hearing, there would be no further opportunity to address the City Council in this matter. So if anyone would like to address this, now would be the time. No, I'm sorry, Ms. Lyons. It's a one opportunity during to call the public. I'm sorry.
Hi, I am Linda Denovan, and I am a current board member of WAS, and would like to just say that as a realtor here in town, my contact information is public and easy to Google. So if anyone has any concerns they would like to bring to the WAS board, I would more than welcome, because this is the first that I am hearing of any of these issues. And one of the things that I would also like to address is the fact that we have had board meetings, and the minutes are publicly available, and there have been some issues with real estate transactions and with personal private vendettas that have been brought against the director And we've been looking into the false allegations and the personal financial gain that people with some of these allegations have. So that's, I think it's a wonderful, wonderful organization. I personally have donated over $50,000, and that is not something that I would do lightly or with any concern as to where my money is going. So I support the organization wholeheartedly. I support the people that work there and that volunteer there, and I have no concern with the contract that the city is considering. And once again, if anyone does have any concerns, as a current board member, I would be more than happy to address any of your concerns. Thank you.
Ms. Donovan, Councilmember Lynn has a question for you.
Yes.
Ms. Donovan, can you tell me how many current board members are on your board?
We have 7.
And is it true that since January you've had 6 that have left the board?
No, we have had 2 that resigned, and prior to that year, we had 2 that the terms had expired.
Okay, thank you.
Do any other members? Councilmember Dolan may have a question for you as well.
Can I ask what actions the board has taken with regards to the executive director's son? It's my understanding that the board instructed them to fire him, and he was hired back as an independent contractor. Can you give us any?
That was before my time on the board.
Okay. With what we heard about fundraising, I think is very disturbing. I know that a lot of organizations do encourage people to donate to their will. I know I'm a Rotarian, and we have something similar to that, but there's definitely, I think, a fine line as far as ethics. And I say that because with the public records that Patty Gilmore, it sounds like she's being sued for doing that very thing to somebody as of 22 months ago. Has the board done any actions or addressed that publicly?
Yes, we have, and the lawsuit that was mentioned has nothing to do with WAS and has nothing to do with any fundraising.
Okay.
Any other questions of council? Thank you, Ms. Donovan. Would anyone else like to address the city council in this matter? Just make your way to the podium and state your name for the record.
Yes, my name is Roger Galloway. I've lived in Havasu since 2004. I was a board member of WAS for 3 years. I would be remiss if I just stood back there and said absolutely nothing at all. I love animals. I have since I was a little kid. I mean, I can't even begin. I don't think anybody could love them more than my mom did. And if I didn't say anything, I'd feel really bad right now. There are a lot of problems with WAS that need to be taken care of, primarily from the inside on the administration side of it. I don't think it's transparent. I don't think it has been transparent for many years. It has so much more it can do. It's not, I'm not going to say it's totally ineffective, because it is not, but it needs a lot of work. Trust me. I would imagine that almost everyone in here loves animals. And I love not only the 3 rescues I have, but I love everybody else's dogs and cats and everything else that they have. And I think a lot of things can be done so much better. I wish it were a membership organization instead of being run by a board and a director under essentially a dictatorship, because that's what it is. That's just a simple fact. I ran through the 3 years. I stayed for the entire 3-year term, but others have dropped out as well. And we had an attorney that I worked with that kind of gave up and finally left as well. And that was because he thought it should be a membership organization legally. There's so much more. At least, and I'm not saying don't do the contract. You got to do something, and I agree with that. You got to take care of the animals in this community, and WAS is the best way to do it. But I just hope they work better. I hope they work harder. And they got some really good people that work over there. And believe me, I know that. But I'm not really happy from the person at the top. So I just want to say that.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address city council in this matter? Just make your way to the podium and state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Logan Woods, and I wasn't going to speak, but I am an animal lover. I've been born and raised with animals my whole entire life, and I just feel that animals don't have a voice, and I would really just like to open up as an ex-volunteer and an ex-employee, just open up and just help the animals, because it's just like young kids don't have a voice, just like animals don't have a voice. And I've seen a lot of things, and I don't agree with it. But I've also seen good things that has helped people too. Animals are great when it comes to veterans, people making them happy and everything like that. And I just hate to see animals suffer. I was born and raised as a young girl. My mom said you can live two different ways. You can have animals and enjoy them and treat them right, or don't have animals at all. And I feel like if you can't cherish the animals while they're here, you shouldn't have any at all. And I just hope you guys open up investigation. I'm not talking about the contract. So yes, that is my statement. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the city council on this matter?
Good evening, Mayor and distinguished members of council. My name is Nancy Geek. I've been a board member since 2011. Prior to that, my husband was on the board for almost six years as well. I am appalled at several of the things that have been allegated against our director, Patty Gilmore. I feel that she's one of the hardest working people that I've been around. I am aware that there have been board members that have left. Most of them, their terms had expired and they left. We have people coming back that have been board members prior to that that want to serve another term. As far as Harvey Jackson, he was moving on to different things. That was the reason why he left. We had two board members, yes, absolutely, that resigned this year. One had a 2-month term and the other one had several months longer. I am in that shelter most days of the week. I interact with the staff in the back. I interact with Doc in the medical area and Lexi. I do not see what they are talking about. I'm not saying that we shouldn't look deeper into this, which we will when Patty gets back. Some of the allegations I'm appalled at as well. However, the shooting of the dog, from what I understand, and I was told before, was because Megan was mauled. And it was one of our kennel techs at that time that actually shot the dog because they could not get to the dog to give it any kind of sedation. So there's a lot of answers to a lot of these questions. I hope that you just don't listen to that. We have a great organization. From what has happened in this community, we are so blessed and so thankful for the people that have stepped up with this shelter. Our dogs are now in a great place. They were in a building that was virtually falling down. But I am here to speak on behalf of our executive director. She gives a lot. She expects a lot, but she gives a lot. And I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Do any members of the council have any questions? Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the city council on this matter? Okay, just make your way to the podium and state your name for the benefit of the city clerk, please.
Good evening, City Council, Mayor Sheehy. Appreciate your time. My name is Mark Etheridge. I'm a homeowner here in Lake Havasu City. I'm a veteran animal lover. I have 4 dogs at home, 2 of which I adopted from the shelter here. The reason I came up to speak is that there are credible allegations here. I'm sitting in the back. I'm hearing people snicker and laugh and make comments, and I'm seeing very few of them stand up and talk. Okay? There are people that know things, there are people that don't know things, but there are credible allegations here. The people that have come forward to speak out about the concerns at WAS are simply asking for an investigation or somebody to look deeper into these concerns. I'm sure there are people that work there that haven't seen these behaviors or haven't had issues. That's fine. That doesn't mean they don't exist. The people that have come forward today have all said that it's a great organization, that they support the work they do. They're animal lovers. They're members of the community that have provided resources, excuse me, volunteer time. But again, these are credible allegations. Maybe not all of them are what they appear to be, but that is why we are asking you to look into them, period. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to address the city council on this matter? Good, how you doing? Yes, it has been a while. Yeah, just go ahead and state your name for the record.
My name is Travis Ramsey. Mic check. Okay, got this.
Yeah, we got you.
All right. Allegation I've heard today is actually becoming like a world thing about women fondling. And if we're looking at these allegations, you're not only looking at, you know, the organization itself. This is going to fall back on the city. So that's what you got to be prepared of, you know. Investigation, I believe, must take place. Because it's not going to just affect a organization, because who runs the organization? The city. So everybody is accountable for their actions, and I believe the actions I've heard here today, and also the things by the people, I think, you know, investigation must take place. Thank you. I'm Travis Ramsey.
Thank you. And just for the record, the city does not operate the Western Arizona Humane Society, so it's not our facility, just so we have the record, but thank you for your comments. Any additional comments? Again, this will be the only opportunity during this evening to speak, so before we close it. Okay. Did you want to speak?
You have one more?
Oh yeah, come on up. Oh.
Leslie Mansell. Good evening, Mayor, council members. I was a previous board member. I served on the board for about 10 years, and I served over 2 different administrators. The previous one, maybe you were describing her, not Patty Gilmore. I can assure you, I'm at that shelter. I know Dr. Litchfield personally for the last 40 years because I've been here 42 years. I know the integrity of Patty Gilmore. I know the integrity of this entire organization. And to sit here and listen to you guys impugn without any facts, and I hope that you would present facts. I don't want them. Give them to them. Give them to whoever's investigating. It just incenses me that it's been like a big, I'd like to say the word, shit show up here. Just bashing one after the other. Sorry, I know these people personally. I've worked with these people personally. I've governed them. It's not there. It's not there. I can assure you, Patty Gilmore will come to the shelter first thing in the morning, and she will be on her hands and knees bleaching the floor along with her employees. That's not somebody who's stealing stuff from donors. That's not what they do. That's not how they work. And as far as you insinuating that Kathy Hodel, who is a very, very distinguished lady in this community, and Patty Gilmore would tell you to go after seniors and panhandle them, is appalling, and it's disgusting. That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. So you might want to find it.
Yeah. All right.
Good evening.
Hi. Please state your name. Yeah, thank you.
My name is Julie Crocker. I have been employed by the Western Arizona Humane Society for about 3 years. I came to the organization with approximately 13 years experience working as a veterinary technician, and I just want all of you to know that I am very proud to work there. I would never work at a place where I felt that there was anything being done incorrectly with animals. I feel proud with the amount of animals that we are able to treat medically that would not be treated in other shelters. And I think that Lake Havasu City should be proud compared to other shelters in this state and in this region of the country. The numbers of pets that we are able to help that other shelters would give them 5 days and say, that's it. It's unbelievable. So I just want you to know that I feel that I probably speak on behalf of many of my coworkers when I say that we would not stick with a place that would be doing anything detrimental to animals. And a lot of these allegations I'm hearing tonight, it's the first time I'm hearing them, and it's hard for me not to snicker because I think that it's garbage, and I am there most days for 8 to 9 hours, and I've never seen any evidence of any of this that they're speaking of. I think it's a wonderful organization, and again, I'm just proud to be there.
Thank you. Yeah, please make your way to the podium. Wait to the microphone if you could. There's folks at home wanting to hear what you have to say as well.
My name's Trina Lee. I've been a volunteer there for about 4.5 years. I have witnessed a lot of things that have went on there. I realize a lot of people are snickering and everything behind me. The two people, I guess, that were on the board, the one being the last one, I have never seen her there at the shelter, and I was there. I've been there 4.5 years. I was there. So there's a lot. I just feel like there should be an investigation because of the fact that we need to take care of our animals. Our entire town believes that we do, and they're being conned. Basically, is what's happening. Totally. And it's a terrible thing to think of. It's a hard thing to realize that it's happening because it's easier to bury your head in the sand, but it is happening.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the City Council before we close the public hearing? Yeah. Please state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name's Selena Denuno, and I've been a resident of Lake Havasu City since 2001. I am a rescue dog owner, and I know that it's crucial to have services for the animals who are, running around without water and the heat and stuff. It bothers me greatly. And so sometimes owners aren't perfect. They get out. I kind of get upset when dogs get on the loose and lost animals and stuff, but I do feel for the animals, and I'm very grateful for the service that's provided to rescue the animals and police department. And I do appreciate the dog pound. It's cool, but I do know that an investigation is critical to get this settled because it's a very disturbing conflict. And I do know that there are folks who do way more than their share and really is an active and integral portion of helping the animals and stuff. And I would really appreciate an investigation. And, if it comes out in taxes or whatever, well, let's put it out there, okay? Because this has got to be addressed because it's a very near and dear thing to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brandy Engler. I have been with the Humane Society for about 17 years, and it really kills me right now to hear what people are saying because I know myself, I bust my butt on getting these animals. My husband and we argue because I foster so many animals and he gets so mad at me. But that we help so many animals, and the employees, they work so hard. Our hearts are into it. So for people to sit there and put us down for that, it just breaks my heart, because let me tell you, we care more about these animals than anything in the world. And it just breaks my heart that some of these volunteers, that they say they're volunteers, I haven't seen them for years. They haven't even been to the new facility, so how can you say or put down how we're caring for the animals when you haven't even stepped foot into the new facility to see how wonderful it is? So please, just understand, we love these animals, and all the staff members and everybody that worked there, we put everything into these animals because that's our world there.
I'm basically a no. Oh, my name is Jill Spangler.
Thank you.
I'm basically nobody, just an old woman who's called the Catwoman at the shelter. I started volunteering in May of 2005. I've been there 14 years now, and for I don't know how long now, I've been volunteering 6 days a week. And it's been over a year that I've been there 6 days a week, and before that it was 5 days. And originally I was only doing it 3 days because my husband was alive. But then he died almost 4 years ago. So I started spending my time at the shelter for my cat therapy. And if you were at the old shelter and then the new shelter, which Patty Gilmore was the head of getting this new shelter, and so many people in the community helped her get that. And everybody's worked so hard to get this new facility, and they've still spent time with the animals. They all care about the animals. And the employees, they're so much happier now at the new facility too. You can't imagine what they had to go through working at the old facility, and they all love the animals. There's a number of them that have been there many, many years, and they wouldn't do cruel things to the animals. And the cats now are so happy to be in this new facility. I think that they don't care that they have to be there for a long, long time because they're happy. And there's one cat that she doesn't want to be taken out of the kennel because she likes it so much there. And she's unfortunately maybe going to spend quite a few months there. But anyway, she's happy now. And I just think that after being there 14 years, I can't believe that these people that are being ridiculed and all the hours they have spent working with the animals. And like they say, Patty herself is always, always working hard, day after day, to help the animals. And thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the City Council? Yes, if you could just make your way to the podium and state your name for the record.
I'm too short.
Oh, you can just bring the mic. Yeah, perfect.
Thank you. My name is Linda Shelton. I'm a resident of Arizona of Lake Havasu City for over 25 years. I understand that our tax money actually supports the shelter. Am I correct?
No, what we're here actually discussing, it's kind of gotten a little off topic, but what we're here discussing is a contract for services, for sheltering services. So tax dollars would pay for the sheltering contract that we're here talking about this evening.
Okay, I just have...
Yeah, just for the animals that get picked up by our animal control officers. Yeah, great
All
point,
right.
Councilmember Koch.
I just have some concerns that I wish could be looked into at the Humane Society. I've heard a lot, and I will not name drop, but I know Dr. Litchfield. I know Trina. I know a lot of good people that work
Just
here.
if you could direct your comments to us too.
I'm very
sorry.
sorry.
Yeah, please.
I'm very
Yeah,
sorry.
thank you.
I have not personally worked at the Humane Society. I would like to know, as a resident of Arizona, isn't it supposed to be a no-kill Humane Society? They're supposed to be, these animals are supposed to be adopted out. I'd like to know how many are actually euthanized or put down. I would like to know how these dogs are being put down. If they are being sedated properly, if they are being muzzled. I had a dog put down there. It's very hard, I'm sorry. I had a dog put down there. We had to. Dr. Litchfield. He had an awful itch disease. He was just eating and biting. After many years of shots, you name it, Dr. Litchfield, we had to have the dog put down. At the time, my husband was not retired yet. He took our dog to the Humane Society. I want to know, was he euthanized properly? Did they put a muzzle on him? Did they shoot him? Was he sedated properly? Was he given Valium or what he's supposed to be given before he was sedated? Or did he just have his head blown off? Now I have heard, oh no. I have heard allegations, but I just would like to know how my own dog was put down. There's a lot of yes or no here in this room, and I'm probably going to just stick my nose out and get my fat mouth in a lot of trouble. I don't really care, because I love my dog. We're owners of Boston Terriers. I love this community. I love our shelter. There are some things going on at that Humane Society that have got to be investigated. You can laugh at me. Any of you can criticize
Linda,
me.
back to us.
I don't really care. You know, I don't know Patty. I've never seen her. I don't know Vicky that was there before Patty. I've never seen her. There's a lot going on that needs to be looked at. Thank you for your time. I'm not a public speaker. I did the best I could.
Thank you for your
Do
comments.
you know Don Klostmeyer?
I do, yes.
Made the clock. I'm his mother-in-law.
Oh, nice. Nice to meet you. Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
So anyone that wants to laugh at me or make comments.
No, not at all. Would anyone else like to address City Council on this matter? Yes, please state your name for the record.
My name is Jenny Petray, and I have been here since 2001. I have rescued dogs, and I've also had pedigrees. The thing I wanted to point out is I know a lot of the people that work there seem to think that they are being attacked, and where they're not. They are not the people that are being attacked. I've been over there to the new one, the old one, whatever, and they do a good job and whatever, but it's the things behind the scenes that's going on. I had a cat that had to be euthanized, Dr. Litchfield, and with all my animals that I've had, and I've had many that's had to be put down because they're old or they got some kind of major medical problem, and he wouldn't let me stay there with my cat. And, so I really don't know how. It was that all my other animals, it's the only time that I have ever not been allowed to be with my animal in the last moments of its life. So I have been, what's the word? I usually say PISS, but I'm still mad. Still mad about that. Because I think your animal that you've had, I had that particular cat for like 19 years, and I should be the last person that cat should see before it is euthanized. And so when I hear these people saying that these animals are being euthanized, my understanding was that this is a no-kill shelter. So this is the first time I've heard of this, that all these animals are being euthanized down there. But I just wanted to make the point is this is not against the people that work there, the volunteers, or anything. You guys do. You do a great job.
Yeah, Jenny, you have to
And we really
direct
need-
your comments to us, please.
Oh.
Yeah,
You really do a great job, and we all appreciate it. So just, we're not mad at you or anything, but there are some things going on that does need to be investigated, and hopefully you will not take this particular thing as an attack on you, because it's not. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Yes, just make your way to the podium and state your name for the record.
My name's Robert McKinney. Unlike most people here, I've only been here for a little under 2 years. I've been to both the old shelter and the new shelter, and I've got to say, everybody I've come into contact with there, no problems at all. Everybody was polite. We walked through the shelter, everything else. My point is for you guys, not everybody else. I don't know anybody there. I don't know what's going on there. So my key word is transparency. I spent 8 years before moving here as the head volunteer at Tulare County Animal Shelter, a high kill animal shelter. I'm a teacher, I was a teacher, retired. I spent every summer 60 hours a week in there. I worked for Westside German Shepherd Rescue as a evaluator of dogs, possibly. I could some other time name 10 other shelters that I worked for as a volunteer. The only thing I'm saying is I hear so much stuff, it makes me uncomfortable. I've seen it in California, and believe me, you guys are so much higher than anything I've ever seen. But it goes back to transparency, because I've seen the ugly side of it, and I fought against the ugly side of it. I get a little emotional too. I spent my last 8 years of my life doing it. I've fostered over 700 dogs, and I had a house. I didn't have a ranch or anything else. My wife and I did it because we loved animals. And, I still have too many of them that I adopted and brought with me because they were unadoptable. They were aggressive. They didn't get along with others. My point is not so much where there's smoke, there's fire, but transparency. I heard it was a no-kill shelter. It was so great to move here because it was a no-kill shelter. I would be curious of all the animals that come through. The chief was talking about how many hundred a year. We did that in a month. We had basically 30 kennels. We'd have 8 dogs per side in double kennels. So there was, here it's so wonderful. I go into the new shelter and there's 1 dog and there's empty kennel. We never saw an empty kennel. But I want to know are we really a no-kill shelter? Is everybody doing what they're supposed to be doing? I've seen the volunteers, I've seen the workers, and they are. I've seen them at events. I've been to the shelter a few times. But honestly, I'm not volunteering there because I just don't know what we have. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. I'm sorry, you only get one opportunity. Sure, I think that probably would be helpful to explain what a no-kill shelter is for the council. Yes.
So the Western Arizona Humane Society is a no-kill ethic shelter. What it is that we have animals, when you have an animal that comes in that's aggressive, where it's not where we can rehabilitate it, that's when we have to make a decision. If an animal is completely ill or injured where we cannot help it, we have to put it down. That is what we are. We're a no-kill ethic shelter. We're not a no-kill shelter. So there has to be a reason why we put that animal down. And it's that's the only time is when they're aggressive or very ill. And that's the only time when we have to make that horrible decision.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yes. Brandy. Councilmember Dolan has a question for you. Oh, no, you're fine. Yes.
I just a question. It was stated that anybody that drops off an animal has to fill out a euthanation form, and somebody had mentioned statistics. Is there a statistic to this that's a concern, or is it?
There's a lot of shelters that do that, and what they do is that we make the public aware that there's a possibility that that animal will not be adopted out, because if that animal comes in and if it's it's great with its owner, but then it wants to eat one of my staff members, that's when we have to make a decision. We have to watch out for the public safety also. We've had dogs that have ripped chest off of people, and we have to be careful of that, with kids getting attacked. So we make sure that everybody knows there's a possibility that that animal will not go up for adoption. Doesn't mean it's going to be euthanized. It's just a precaution of doing that.
That makes sense. And those seem to be a little bit more on the extreme cases. In the in-between stage, when they decide, of course, if an animal's sick, but who makes the in-between decisions? Is it someone higher up that's trained to a certain level? Because accusations were made that it was people in there that aren't as good with animals. Well, why would they be working with animals? So I guess my question is, who makes that ultimate decision, which animals are put down, and is there a criteria they have to match?
Well, if there's a health issue, we have Dr. Litchfield that he is the one that makes that decision. He will do an examination to do that decision. Okay. We also have a vet techs. We have 2 vet techs that also will examine if doc is not there, but usually he's there to do the examinations. Aggressionists, we always do an evaluation where it's called a safer evaluation. If they do not pass a safer evaluation, then that means that they're not safe to be adopted by the public. Like I said, we have to, if there's sometimes where we can't even walk into a kennel. We just recently had a staff member walk into a kennel and he got his foot chewed up. Thank God he had great boots on. But it happens, you can't predict on some of these animals, especially if they're strays. No one can predict on some of these temperaments on the animals that come in.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember McCoy.
One more question, please.
Every time you walk back, we'll have another question for you.
Just one more quick question. You had mentioned that if the animal was aggressive and so you put it on the will not be adopted list, but it didn't necessarily mean that it would be euthanized. Did I understand that?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that.
And I may have heard wrong, but it sounded like to me that you said if an animal is deemed aggressive and it's put on the will not be adopted list,
what we do is if the staff member goes in and finds that it's dangerous for it to be up for adoption, because we will go in where we can't even walk into a kennel.
Right.
That's when we have to make that decision that if we can't even get into that kennel to be able to love on the animals, then we can't be able to put that animal up for adoption, because we're endangering the public, and we're endangering our volunteers that work with these animals every day.
I thought I heard you say that it wouldn't necessarily be euthanized, though. Is that correct?
If the animal is aggressive, if the animal is aggressive where we can't even handle the animal, yes, we would have to euthanize it because we can't even be able to handle the animal.
And does the animal get like a mulligan? I mean, do you go back and see it? You don't know golf. Do you go back where a second chance to kind of see if maybe just it was having a bad day? I don't know.
Many animals have gone through our safer testing program, and sometimes the person that's feeding that animal could have been the one that tested it, and it would tested perfect because they really like that person that brought them food. Sometimes it could be somebody that worked closer to the front and didn't have as much contact. So not every animal that received a bad rating by the first employee was automatically deemed euthanized. It usually went through a process where they could go through 2, 3, even 4 safer tests. And then it usually went through a committee of Patty, myself, and a few other employees where we discussed the future of the dog and the viability of adoption. You're welcome.
May I ask a question from a representative, please?
Councilmember Grote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I may not have the best facts because I really didn't have a lot of time to put this together. But it's my understanding that the euthanasia of animals in the state of Arizona is a highly regulated matter. that we have Arizona revised statutes that speak directly to it. In fact, in 2017, I believe we were able to use 2 different kinds of medications to euthanize animals. Now it is limited, if I'm not mistaken, by the Office of the Veterinarian of the state of Arizona, which I believe falls under the Department of Agriculture, and rightfully so, that we would only use pentobarbital. Perhaps it comes as pentobarbital sodium, but it's delivered by IV.
Correct.
And the function is essentially that, if I understand it correctly, the dog would be sedated so that it doesn't really realize what's about to happen. And then it would be injected with this medication. And for those who don't know what that is, it's a barbiturate. Probably that's how Marilyn Monroe died. It basically functions as a cessation of the central nervous system's capacity to be able to create respiration. The dog stops breathing and it passes away. This is the most humane form of euthanasia that I believe exists in the world today. Our state legislature has taken great pains to make sure that that is in fact the case. Now, here's the part that I have a question about. When I was reading the revised statutes, it appeared to me that only a veterinarian was licensed to do that. But at the same time, I also read a clause that said, given the guidance of the Office of the State Veterinarian, meaning that individual themselves, whoever holds that office, I assume, which is appointed by the governor, or the director, such policies may be applied. So that made me think, okay, can a vet tech deliver that if they're certified? Do they require a certification? What is the fact or the case at WAS? Who is able to euthanize an animal, and what are the qualifications required, if I may?
Sure. At this time, we've already approached the state vet board ourselves as a company. I started that last week. So a licensed DVM, being Dr. Litchfield, or a certified veterinary technician under the guidance of the doctor, much like what you had just repeated. So we at WAS have stopped any euthanasias that aren't being conducted by the veterinary, or we have stopped any euthanasias that were being performed by veterinary technicians that weren't certified, as well as kennel techs, and they are all being funneled through our new veterinary clinic with our doctor, Dr. Litchfield.
Okay, now the reason I mention that is that in this package that everybody on the council got that has been referred, the infamous package, much of that is related to, people are talking about personnel matters and so forth. And quite frankly, though difficult as it may be, it's really not the job of the council to be involved in the administrative overseeing of what happens in a nonprofit organization. But clearly the community has said this council needs to do something. Here's sort of what was said, and it was a little disturbing to me, but at least action, I understand from what you've now told me, has been taken. Somebody wrote in a letter, the part that concerned me was they basically, I won't describe it word for word, but it was like a euthanasia gone wrong, if you will. Now this drug is also used in death sentences for humans. And we have more information on how those executions transpire when they're done incorrectly. And extraordinarily painful. Our animals cannot speak or convey this information to us. So it's incredibly important that, in my opinion, that the state duly have these regulations so that veterinary medical professionals who are trained to do it are in fact doing it. Because if we don't give it intravenous and it happens to be delivered in an intramuscular injection by accident, that can be extraordinarily painful for the animal. Most people wouldn't know that, but that's a fact. I just want to make sure everybody's aware that this can go wrong. And none of us, do I believe, whether on council or whether sitting in the audience or listening at home or anybody, wants to see animals suffer.
That's correct.
And so it's all in our best interest. But, you know, what they said that got me a little bit curious. Chief, I used to be a federal investigative agent for the United States Army. I was a counterintelligence special agent. What I read in here was not what the person was complaining about. It was an afterthought. It was this horrific discussion of a euthanasia gone bad. And finally, after collapsing all their veins, we had to get a hold of the vet tech to get it done correctly. And that's when the flags went up. I went, really? Is the vet tech certified to do this euthanasia? Why wasn't it the veterinarian? And I became rather livid when that flag went off. So I'm really happy that you've told me you've confronted that.
Yes, sir.
And you're going to make the appropriate changes, because here's the piece that I think is important. And I'm now looking at our city attorney and our city manager. Do we have a liability? I understand we have an indemnity clause, but the city does have a certain amount of power in all contracts that we engage in. It's called the, and correct me if I'm wrong here, what is the name? The 30-day, the 11B clause that went out in the notice of intent to contract for the service. It's basically, what is that called, city attorney?
Notice terminate contract in 30 days?
Yes, it's at our discretion.
Yes.
Is that for any reason?
Any reason.
Whatsoever. I mean, we can just randomly decide we don't like the way somebody combs their hair. Doesn't matter. We can terminate a contract on 30 days. And the people who take these contracts sign up for that arrangement. Okay, so the reason I'm saying all this is because when we have issues like the one that I talked about, the euthanasia gone bad, that gives me cause for concern. The other side of the coin is the Western Arizona Humane Society provides an enormous benefit to our community, which the community wants and in fact demands and desires. And then finally, as the chief pointed out, there comes a point where you cannot provide these services at a lesser cost. Never mind the risk management issues that are tied up in all this, the professional certifications, the licensure. I'm sure any doctor of veterinary medicine will tell you that they went to school and studied just as hard as a regular MD did.
Correct.
And they did. In fact, I would argue their job is harder because they have all these different anatomies and physiologies to deal with.
That don't speak to you.
Yeah, and they don't speak to you. And in comes the boa constrictor. Hello, I have to treat this. So we have a lot of work being done there that's critically important to our city that cannot be necessarily achieved just by throwing together some plan B option. So I guess what I'm looking for is what you've already told me, that the euthanasia piece has been understood to be incorrect and has been rectified.
Yes, sir. That would be, that's correct. We started that immediately after talking with the state vet board last week. The state did inform me, though, when they were there, if they're actually shelter animals, the state does not hold an opinion on that. So once they're WAS-owned animals, the state wouldn't confirm nor deny that a kennel tech that's been trained could do it. However, we've taken the decision and taken it off the board, and we're funneling them all through the vet center only.
Excellent, thank you. That was my most important concern in all this. As I look at this as a contract, could I ethically, because I honestly believe when I read that and I went, whoa, that might be a violation of the contract we're currently in. If we're in a contract that has a breach at the moment, how can I engage in a contract for 5 years?
Yes.
This is my concern. But I have to weigh the reality of everything else that we are discussing as a whole. And I want to continue to hear from more people if they want to speak to this, because we're not going to get another opportunity. We're going to be making a decision tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I want you all to know that I, for one, and I'm sure everybody else behind the dais, is deeply appreciative of the fact that you're willing to share what you know with us, so that at the end of the day we have the most information possible to conduct ourselves with a proper decision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, just state your name for us for the record, please.
My name is Dr. Litchfield. I'm the veterinarian at the Western Arizona Humane Society. Mayor, council members, thank you for the good words about myself and my medical staff. We do work very hard. I am the one that has been appointed for euthanasia, and I only. No techs, no kennels people, me. That is the new policy in ordinance with the director on down. The director tells us what to do, we do it. I owned my own private practice for 30 years. I came to town back in the 70s. I retired a number of years ago and stopped by the Humane Society and thought, you know, they needed help, which they did. If I or my medical staff assist me in euthanasia, it's done professionally, ethically. Yes, when I went to veterinary school, there were only 18 schools in the United States. Yes, it was harder to get into veterinary school than into human medicine. It doesn't make me perfect or in the Mensa Society, but you know, this contract, you know, if you want to investigate the people, investigate. You know, you want to investigate the director, investigate. It has nothing to do with what we're doing at the Humane Society. We work hard. Yeah, we complain sometimes. Every one of us cares about the animals. Now, no kill. I gave this to the director a few years back. There are dogs that are vicious dogs, and I have scars to prove it in the 40 years I've done it. And from Chihuahuas on up to 170-pound Rottweiler, you know. I do not tranquilize prior to euthanasia. In private practice, if the client wanted to be with them, I would okay that. That's not a problem. The policy there at Humane Society per director is that they are not with them. I have nothing to do with that policy. We did 3 today. I did 3 today, and my medical staff assisted me. You know, but this doesn't have anything to do with the contract. If you don't agree with if you don't agree to the contract, you know, the animals are going to suffer. God, I didn't go through all this stuff. I don't like getting up in front of people and talking, and everybody knows that. And I mean, I've cried, and my staff has cried. You know, when we do something good and they go out the door 3-legged or one eye or you know, half a face is gone, they go out and somebody's adopted them and they're so happy, we all cry. We're just so pleased we could do it. And again, when I told this to the director, I said, okay, now this dog, you got to be careful. So they retrained this animal. This animal was not a good dog. It was unfortunate that he didn't know any better. I said, Patty, you leave that dog with your 4-year-old grandson in the kitchen. You go in the living room and play with your remote TV thing or nothing. Would you trust that dog? No. That dog is put to sleep. That's it. The dog is put to sleep. I asked if there are any refuge or, you know, like animal, say pit bull, what is that, where they just take pit bulls and rescue pit bull things. We like to send them if they do have that. Golden retriever, I mean, any kind of dog, if they have a rescue for that, most of them are filled. But we cannot help them. We cannot save them. We cannot, you know, medical-wise, if they cannot be saved, and we have to euthanize. I make the decision. I tell the director, I can't help him. I can't help her. She's going to have to, you know, be put to sleep. She okays it, but she has to know about it, of course. You know, and I hear all these stories. I mean, what we do is we do our job, and we don't really care about out in the front. You know, we just do our work. We're happy with our work. We work very hard at it. We all care. If you want to investigate, you can investigate. I don't care anybody you want, because I'm sure you're probably going to do it. It has nothing to do with the contract. So just leave that out, you know. You know, I'm sure you got a question or something, but, you know, it's, you know, and I mean, okay. I didn't. It wasn't me.
Thank you for your comments. Would anyone else like to address City Council before we close the public hearing? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Councilmember
I'd
Dolan.
like to make a comment or two.
Yes.
I've served on many community boards here in this community, and it's an honor and it's a responsibility. And as a board member, we have a fiduciary responsibility to the organization. to make sure it does what it's supposed to do. And that fiduciary responsibility is not necessarily to protect the people that run the organization, it's to protect the organization. And sometimes it's to protect the organization from the people operating the organization. Decisions need to be made what's best for the organization. I have personally received 4 emails before this meeting from 4 board members of WAS, ensuring me that they take all these allegations very seriously. However, they're coming from disgruntled employees and disgruntled volunteers and disgruntled board members. And I have concerns with that. They also have told me they have tremendous faith, 100% faith in their executive leader, and which I think is great, but how are you going to hold them to that higher standard to make, when you hear these complaints, you need to look at it and make sure that things are being operated correctly. And that is honestly my biggest concern tonight. I will vote yes for it. I think it is needed for the city. I can assure you, this contract's for 5 years, but at any point we as a city can pull back from it. I'm going to be asking questions from here on out, as I wish other people do, and I hope we get these answers. And if they're false allegations, they're false allegations. But we even talked about the allegations. There's also human resources violations here that haven't been discussed that have come through. Changing of time cards, not paying for overtime. People would work 40 hours and told, no, we had 40 hours, you're done, but you have to keep working. Instead of paying 150%, which is time and a half, they're paying 0. These are allegations. They need to be looked into. It's not my job to look into it. That's the Department of Labor, or the Department of Labor, yeah. They look into that, and I believe they might, and I think they should. And I think as a board, they need to look into these allegations. And had some notes, but like I said, I have nothing against WAS as an organization. I think it's an amazing organization. Like I said, I'm proud of Havasu. I was born here 42 years ago. I have adopted, just as an adult, 2 dogs from there. As kids, we adopted them. It's an amazing organization, but it is bigger than the person running it. It is bigger than the board of directors. It is our job to protect it. We all know what happened to interagency. That's a word nobody wants to hear, but we went through the same thing with them, and I think we have to ask these questions. So, like I said, I feel comfortable with the contract itself. I thank everyone that came here tonight in support and against it. Keep talking to people. Like I said, I'm gonna continue to have questions months from now. I looked over the contract. We get reports every single month, or every quarter, I believe, with a lot of this information that has been discussed. And if we don't fall in line with that, we can back out of it at any time. So I just want to thank everyone for coming. I know it's been a long night. It's a great organization. I'd ask everybody on the yes and the no side to continue fighting for the great organization that is Western Arizona Humane Society. So thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Ling.
It's my turn. Okay, 4 things that I've heard come up today. 1, WAS is a great organization. Everybody agrees with that, even the people that have problems. So for those of you that are working at WAS and doing this job for our animals, thank you. Keep it up, keep doing what you're doing. Second issue we have is there have been some allegations against some employees. I can't say it any better than what Mr. Dolan said. The board is now aware of the issues. The first step is to let the board take care of the problems. If you don't take care of the problems, well, then we'll deal with that when the time comes. But we expect you to take care of the problems. So I'm not concerned about that at this point. That's for you guys to handle right now. The third issue is I heard some criminal activity, groping of people, unauthorized touching. Those things shouldn't be brought up to board members. Those things shouldn't be brought up to the city council. You're supposed to call the police department. So when you have criminal activities, call the police department so they can investigate it. Don't hold on to it and say, well, I'm not going to volunteer anymore because there's somebody groping somebody. That's just not the way it's supposed to be done. So if you see illegal activity or people are shooting guns inside, even if that's how they want to, I think I heard somebody say that somebody shot an animal. Well, that's illegal to do in the city. Call the police department and let them handle it. Then the fourth issue is what we're actually here for, our contract. Now, when it came to the contract, I had discussions with our city manager. That's what we do. When we have issues, we talk to the city manager. I talked to the city manager before any of this ever started. And I said, I don't like the WAS contract right now. I believe the amount of money that we're paying for on this contract is not fair to the taxpayers of Lake Havasu. So does it help WAS and their bottom line? It does. But does it help us in our bottom line? No, it does not. I want to see some changes, maybe a per animal or something else. Well, the city manager took that to the chief of police because that's how we do business. The police chief is the one that negotiates the contract because it's his agency that has to budget it, and that's where it gets paid for. But they didn't want to talk, and this is where I had my problem with WAS. They didn't want to talk to the chief. They said, nope, this is what our contract is, take it or leave it. So then the city manager had to step in. And then the city manager stepped in and said, look, let's negotiate this. Nope, take it or leave it. And it wasn't until the mayor stepped in, which the mayor shouldn't be the one negotiating contracts for the city. That's what we hire a city manager and a police chief to do. So I was upset with that. But when it came down to it, to the bottom line, put all those personal feelings aside, did the mayor, the police chief, and the city manager sit down with WAS and negotiate a contract? They did. Did they negotiate a good contract? I think they did. I think they came up with a contract that is fair to the city, it's fair to the taxpayers. Are the taxpayers getting the best bang for their buck to take care of our animals? If, God forbid, somebody's poor animal gets out when they're not home, animal control will pick them up, take them to WAS, and they'll be well cared for. That's what we want for our citizens. I think it's a great contract. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for negotiating it on behalf. And if we have further issues later, as Mr. Grote said, we have 30 days to cancel the contract. And I don't foresee that happening, but you never know. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember McCoy?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I just want to say thank you to everybody that was here tonight. I know this is very emotional. Again, everything that's been set up here, we think you guys are doing a great job there. There are issues when you get one or two people that are willing to put their name on a letter and say, you know, this happened or that happened, you kind of go, okay, well, every business has people that are unhappy. When you have the stack that we have, then you have to say, wait a minute, we need to look at what's going on. And as Councilmember Dolan said, we serve on a lot of different boards ourselves. We've, you know, tons of boards. And, you know, I'm on boards that meet once a month, that meet, you know, every 2 months, every 3 months, whatever it might be. Do I really know what's happening in the business that I'm on that board? No. All I know is what I'm being told. So I would like to ask that the board members really spend time, get in there, see what's going on. You know, document, talk to people, talk to the people that were willing to put their name on these letters. I mean, that's big because most of the time people will complain and not give their name, just like the orchids and onions. They don't want to put their name out there, but they want to complain. These people were willing, and I think that means there's something that needs to be said. I think, as Councilmember Lane said, this is a good contract. I'm happy with this contract. I would like to see in the future more information. I would like to see more numbers, you know, of the animals. The gentleman that was from California that worked in shelters talked about, you know, having the numbers in a week that we have in a month or a year even. But I would just like to have more numbers as to what is actually going on at the shelter. How many animals are being put down? You know, we don't know that. I know that sometimes they have to be, and I understand that, but I think that that's information that we should have and the board members should have, honestly. So again, I will be voting for the contract, but I would like to ask the board members and everybody that's involved to do due diligence and get as much information as they can, because these people are hurting that have lost their animals and were not able to be there, not able to know what exactly happened. And I want us all to not yawn. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Koch?
Again, thank you to everyone who came out and who contacted us prior to the meeting. You know, You have to understand, sitting behind this dais, there is only so much that we can do as a city council when it comes to an organization that is not our responsibility. I appreciate the input. It did not fall on deaf ears. We've heard everything everyone has to say on both sides of the issue. At the end of the day, what we're here tonight to make a decision on is the contract before us. There are rules and regulations that come along with this contract that if WAS does not uphold their end, then we'll end our side of it. And that's really what we're here to decide. And from there on, if there's other issues that we need to deal with, we'll need to deal with those down the road. So it is personal. I don't think there's anybody that will disregard that, but there's a lot more to what's going on here, and we got way off of the track of what we're really making the decision on. The decision's on the contract, and from after that, what we need to do is make sure that they're upholding their end of the contract, sticking with the rules, making sure that they're not breaking rules, and if that's the case, then the contract will become null and void as far as I understand a contract. I worked for a nonprofit my entire adult life up until 3 years ago. I know how board of directors work, how staff works, and I know sometimes it's a sticky situation, but you do have to follow protocol and go through the right chains of command in the beginning to make sure that you're doing what's right for the organization. So know that we heard what you had to say. We appreciate what you have to say. And just because we vote on a contract tonight one way or the other does not mean that we're not going to follow through with what's been told to us tonight. So thank you again for your time.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Councilmember Dolan?
I think everyone's been patiently waiting to discuss the flood control, so I would like to make a motion.
Yeah.
Alrighty. I move to approve and authorize the city manager to execute a 5-year animal care and sheltering services contract with the Western Arizona Humane Society from July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2024.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Dolan and a second from Vice Mayor Lane. Is there any further discussion?
There is, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Groh?
I'd just like to point out some financial information. Because it is a nonprofit, nonprofits file what we call a Form 990 with GuideStar.org. It's a little bit of a trailing indicator. I don't have the most recent financials. Anybody in the public can look up what is out there from 2014, 2015, and 2016. The importance of this contract to that organization, if I were to assume year-over-year growth following the same pattern from 2014 to 2015 on revenues, 1.2 to 1.45 million and 15% year-over-year growth 2014 to 2015. Now we're not talking about the balance sheet items, meaning the new building, which is fairly significant. We're talking about the cash flow that keeps the organization alive and pays for those people who work there. 2015 to 2016 went from 1.4 million to 1.7 million, year-over-year growth of 17.42%. Assuming similar growth patterns, this contract would represent somewhere on the order of 12% of their revenue anticipated for this year. Now that is not an existential threat to the health of the organization to survive, but it is significant. Could mean somebody loses a job even, who knows? I don't know their budgets over there. All I know is what I pulled off the Form 990, which is a legally required document to be filed, and it is basically the nonprofit version of a profit and loss statement and a balance sheet. So this is not an organization that's just rolling in the dough. This contract is actually important to the mission of the Western Arizona Humane Society. My largest concern being the ethical euthanization of animals has been, I have asked that question, it has been answered to my satisfaction. The personnel issues, while I know they are significant, and I'm sure there will be a lot of questions that are going to be asked going forward, the 30-day clause gives us the complete power to do whatever we want to. Essentially, we can take this contract, which is a pretty good contract, right? Like we have to actually pay for the animals that show up, like if a citizen shows up and says, here's the animal. It's not just when the police department shows up. So the $600 actually turns closer to $400. You're talking about $250 or thereabouts for medical, just on the intake alone. Some of these animals are there for 6 months. I mean, like, hello, you know how much dog food costs? They're probably operating at a net loss, for crying out loud, on each one of these dogs. I'm sorry, I'm allergic to cats. I do love them, but I'm allergic to them. So I always talk in terms of dogs. So I want the people to understand in particular, the people who are home watching this, everybody, I think, in these chambers tonight cares very deeply about what happens to these animals. But we also have the mission of a larger organization. Councilmember Dolan pointed out what happened with interagency. And I think it's very important that we keep in mind that sometimes the mission of an agency is very important to our people. And that is the core point of the decision of this contract. I don't need to talk a whole bunch more because it's getting late, and I think everybody can do the math already, so they're probably going 1, 2, 3, 4. That's all you need. You got to count to 4 when you're on city council. All right? So those are my comments. I would like to, like everybody else here, thank the people who've given us the information that we've heard tonight. Thank everybody for their concern for animals. Animals can't speak. And I want to thank our mayor. And I want to thank our city manager. And I think they did an amazing job, and the police chief, of taking a situation where we were probably going to wind up having a great big problem and turning it into what I see as a potentially salvageable situation so that we can retain the services of WAS and serve the people of our community in the best way possible. As far as all the rest of the stuff and the ballyhoo, well, that will all get sorted out, but sole discretion 30-day in a contract is a beautiful thing, as well as indemnity. So we are covered as a city, and we have all the options in our hands. So let us see how this unfolds. And with that, I will step back and
Thank you.
allow the motion to take its course, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we do have a motion and we have a second. Just real fast, we collectively were using the words we. I just want to clarify that the city does not own or operate the Humane Society. We are here talking about a contract for services for sheltering. That's what we have a motion and a second for. So those words are not interchangeable for what it is. So just so that everyone watching or here tonight understands that. All right, we do have a motion and a second. We are ready to vote.
Motion carries 6-1.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for being here. We appreciate it. All right, so we will move on to the next item, the one that you're all here for, which is 8.12, adopt resolution number 19-3323, approving an intergovernmental agreement with the Mojave County Flood Control District for flood control purposes. Mr. Salisbury.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. As you said, we have an intergovernmental agreement before you tonight. We'll fund the construction costs associated with slope stabilization improvement of Havasu Wash 3. That's our next wash we've got in our program to improve. We'll fund the design of Avalon Drain number 2. Section 4.14 of this agreement is a new provision to cost share the funding for the county's alert flood warning system. It's about $650,000 split between us and the other cities in the county. Our portion is about $202,000, $203,000. It'll provide $2,189,436 of funding for the city's flood control program. This is one of the stations right outside City Hall that is attached to this alert system. These are 17 total locations that we have around the city that we're contributing for. This is what one of our washes looks like before it gets improved. This is the finished product. Well, it's in progress, but this is what we do with the dollars. This is another wash, Hillside Drain, and this is what it looks like today. This is what we use the money for. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council may have at this time.
Thank you. Councilmember Groh?
Surprise, it's a water thing. So yeah, can you kind of explain, in terms that we can all kind of, what's the downside if we don't do this?
Right now, we get all of our funding from the county. to do this stuff. We would basically be dead in the water, for lack of a better term. We'd have to find some money ourselves to fund this program if we want to continue improving these washes.
Excuse me, I wasn't thinking so much about the money and the program. Is what happens to the washes?
Oh.
Or what's the impact to our citizens? Like, what does that look like for the people?
Absolutely. As the washes deteriorate, they get deeper, and these slopes kind of fall in, and that encroaches further and further onto people's properties. A lot of these washes have block walls and things that are currently falling in that we need to stabilize and prevent from continuing. So these uncontrolled flows and the head cutting that happens from the water has great potential to impact and damage property and life.
Thank you. The reason I wanted to ask that question, I believe you used the term head cutting. And so the easiest way for people to visualize it, if you don't happen to own a house on a wash and you're watching your land start to sink away from you into the wash, you've all seen pictures of houses hanging over the cliffs in California. It's the same concept. And we have a number of people in our community, lots of them, and you can probably tell me even more about that, who literally shudder when the monsoon season comes because they know there's going to be head cutting and is my wall going in, or my garage or my house, or, you know, some of them got to be pretty close. I've seen some that are pretty close, so can you give me a little on that?
Absolutely. If we go back to the slides here, this is a perfect example of exactly what we do to restore these washes. As you can see back here, these slopes are very vertical and getting very close to these houses up here. These areas here are a perfect example of how the water kind of sinks down and just starts eroding and creates these vertical surfaces next to the homes. This slide here, you can see we've restored this bank. We actually added about 3 foot to the flat part of these people's property at the top of the slope and restored. It was getting very close to this gentleman with the wood fence back here, his fence, and getting ready to topple that into the wash.
I can see. Did you have to put riprap up on there?
No, sir. We just compacted earth and fill.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Salisbury, were we included in the discussion about even having an alert flood system? Were we on a task force that thought this was a good idea, or?
Not to my knowledge. The city manager may have some more information.
Yeah, thank you, Dustin. Mayor, Council, we were invited, myself and our city engineer were invited to a meeting a few months back talking about the importance of the alert system from the county's perspective, and it is something that does make a lot of sense for communities in Mojave County. The goal there was to identify funds from the 4 cities to help supplement a program that the county has been administering for well more than a decade. We made the case to the county and the others at the table that we think it's unfair that the city is contributing the most towards that system and benefiting the least from the system of the 4 cities and 5 entities, including the county. So certainly we voiced our displeasure, and it had little impact. The IGA you have in front of you identifies the reduction of the $200,000 towards, and that money going towards the flood control system that the county administers. And it also includes our allotment, or the $2.2 million that we rely on as a city. Again, our taxpayers pay those funds, the property tax, they go to the county and then are returned to the city, and we use them for all the different projects that Mr. Salisbury has identified that have been so vital to our area. Those are the projects that make sense. Those are the ones that help us in improving our washes and our drains, and there wasn't a whole lot of interest from the city's perspective that was voiced by myself and others for the flood control network, but nonetheless, we find ourselves in this situation with a IGA that includes both of those impacts.
Thank you, Mr. Knudsen.
Mr. Knudsen? So it's my understanding we're just supposed to say thank you for getting the money that we've paid and be happy about it. Am I correct in that?
That's one way of explaining it,
Okay,
sir.
thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Thank you for what we get back in Mojave County. Do you know how much we're paying compared to Kingman and Bullhead? I remember seeing that at some point, but we're like 200,000, they're like 50,000 and 12,000, or
Yeah, I got that document
Colorado
in front of me
City
if I can
pays
able
like
to do some
20
quick,
cents or
quick
something.
math on it. Yeah, Lake Havasu City was just over $200,000. Kingman was about $55,000. These are rough numbers. If you look at Bullhead City, about $80,000.
And we have 17 of these stations?
No, we have 6 of these stations within Lake Havasu City. We
Money
have
well spent. Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah, 6 of the 196 stations in the county. Yeah.
Councilmember Lynn?
Did they give a reason why we're paying more?
It's the formula that the county addressed with the cities is based on the assessed valuation. So we're paying more towards the system because of the assessed valuation in Lake Havasu City, not because of the benefit to the system. So that was something we had a concern with.
All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Dolan?
Motion?
Yes.
I move to adopt resolution number 19-3323, approving the intergovernmental agreement with the Mojave County Flood District for the flood control purposes.
I'll second that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We have a motion from Councilmember Dolan and a second from Councilmember Grote. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is 8.13, ratify city manager's execution of amendment number 1 to the construction management professional services agreement for the Lake Havasu Avenue reconstruction project with Civil and Environmental, Inc. Mr. Hart.
Yes, good evening, Honorable Mayor Sheehy and distinguished council members. I'm Jason Hart. I'm the project manager of Lake Havasu Avenue project that was down there between Mesquite and Swanson. As a component to any project that the city awards in terms of contracts, we also typically award a construction management contract with a consultant who comes in and helps us with inspections during the project, as well as administration management and submittal reviews and all that. The project itself was extended a total of 34 days via some change orders and things that we encountered. The contract with the consultant didn't cover that additional 34 days, so we needed to obtain some funding to continue to have our inspection team on there with us due to our staffing and things like that. So that is what we are looking for in terms of our ratifying that agreement that the city manager so helpfully stepped in and helped us with. So.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from the council? Councilmember Lynn?
Is there a reason why we're that many calendar days behind?
Well, typically in any project, and particularly one of this size with all the underground utilities and such, you encounter things that are unknown that cause delays. And in this instance, there were, as most of you are aware, we did have a rainy season. So we had, I believe, 6 days went towards rain. We had various utilities that were encountered that delayed in terms of materials needing to be ordered and going back to the drawing board and rethinking things and just typical normal construction stuff.
Any other questions of the council? Yes, so one comment for me is construction management, I think they should manage better and they should have kept it within what we agreed upon. So that's why we hire construction managers to manage things. So with that being said, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Motion, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Move to ratify the city manager's execution amendment number 1 to the construction management professional services agreement for the Lake Havasu Avenue reconstruction project with Civil Environmental, Inc.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Grote and a second from Councilmember Dolan. Any further discussion? All right, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 6-1.
Thank you. All right, item 9 on our agenda is current events. Do any council members have any council committee reports? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 10. Item 10 is our final call to the public. This again is where citizens have the opportunity to address the city council on any matter within the jurisdiction of the city. Same guidelines apply. The red light indicator or the light indicator is on there, and state your name. With that being said, would anyone like to address the city council at the call to the public? All right, we will close the call to the public. Item 11 is our future meetings. Tuesday, July 9th, 2019 at 6 p.m. is our regular meeting and also the property tax levy adoption. Tuesday, July 23rd at 6 p.m. is a regular meeting. Item 12 is future discussion items. Do any council members have any future discussion items? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 13, adjournment. I have a motion from Vice Mayor Lane and a second from Councilmember Dolan. We are adjourned. Thank you everyone for staying with us this evening.